Good evening, everyone. As I mentioned, it's the 15th of June, Tuesday evening. It's now just after 6 o'clock at 6:03 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the City of Canning Civic Centre. Just in regards to the declaration, as always, we acknowledge the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet this evening, and we pay our respects, of course, to elders both past and present. Before we start, may I ask everyone present to please turn off electronic devices, and those include mobile phones, iPads and tablets for the duration of the meeting, as these devices may interfere and do interfere with our audio equipment. Tonight's council meeting is being recorded. A copy of the audio recording shall be available on the city's website within 72 hours of this meeting's conclusion, but I'm pleased to say that often it is on there well before then. The remainder of the disclaimer can be seen on screen. Thank you. Governance. Apologies this evening at item 2.1. Councillor Lindsay Holland is an apology for this evening's meeting. Approved leave of absence at item 2.2, there are none. Disclosures of interest at item 3.1. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. I've received a declaration of interest financial from Councillor Sweeney in relation to item EN-008-21. The item detail is that it's a loan funding agreement, Willetton Basketball Association. The nature of the interest is Councillor Sweeney is a member of the Willetton Basketball Association. I have received a declaration of impartiality from yourself, Mayor, in relation to item CD-018-21. It's the request to waive planning fees, Kennington Agricultural, Horticultural and Recreation Society. The nature of the association is that you're a former member of the society. However, of course, I am of course able to exercise my decision-making responsibilities as an elected member, impartiality and in good faith. The other declaration, Mayor, is from Councillor Bain in relation to the same items, CD-018-21, request to waive planning fees, the proposed extension of the community purpose use at 14030-1432 Albany Highway. Councillor Bain is a member of the Station Street Men's Shed, and he has said he will remove himself from the meeting for this item. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, CEO. Item 4, announcement by the presiding member. There is none. Item 5, reports of delegates. Does any elected member wish to present a delegate report? None. Thank you. Question time for the public. Just in relation to item 6.1, which is responses to previous questions taken on notice. Responses to questions taken on notice at the OCM of the 18th of May 2021 from a Mr. Gleeson have been included in the agenda for tonight's meeting. Question time from the public. I'm now going to open public question time at 6:08 p.m. The time set aside for public question time is 15 minutes, which may be extended if necessary. For recording purposes, please state your name and address and then proceed to ask your questions. If an answer cannot be provided at tonight's meeting, the question will be taken on notice and an answer will be provided at the next ordinary council meeting. In accordance with policy AD02, members of the public who have registered their questions with the city's administration shall be called upon in the order in which registrations were received. Written questions will of course precede verbal questions. The City has received questions for tonight's meeting from Mr. Trevor Whitred, Mr. Steve Walker and Miss Judy Potter, and we'll call those people forward in that order. Mr. Whitred. Trevor Whitred. Let me see, I don't have anything here from Mr. Whitred. Do we have any prepared questions from him? Governance, when did we last speak to? Oh, Director Bowe?
Because of the question.
Did you want to pass that along? We've received a question in writing from Mr. Whitred. It's been provided to me by Director Bowe. Just give me a moment and I'll just get to it. The question relates to the review of restricted access vehicle routes, John Street, Ewing Street, Catherine Street and Davies Lane in Bentley, and the public consultation. The question being, at the council meeting on the 20th of April 2021, the public question was asked whether there had been an outcome from the review of the restricted access vehicle routes adjacent to Bentley Plaza. The Mayor advised that the administrative processes related to this consultation concluded a number of weeks ago, and that he was in receipt of the officer's report on the matter and will be briefing elected members over the coming weeks with the city's actions to be based on the outcome of the briefing. The question being, what was the outcome of the briefing and what are the expected timelines for acting on these actions? Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Elected members were provided a briefing report on this matter on the 4th of June 2021. The outcomes of this briefing were that Main Roads Western Australia not be requested to remove any of the restricted access vehicle routes in the Bentley commercial industrial area at this stage. The restricted access vehicle routes in the Bentley commercial industrial area be reviewed once the Metronet upgrade to the Welshpool Road 7 Oaks Street intersection and adjacent rail crossing is determined and completed. Is anticipated to occur within the next 3 to 4 years. Further, that Main Roads WA be requested to install appropriate signs in John Street and Ewing Street to warn truck drivers to reduce noise through the residential area, and to include an appropriate treatment for Acton Avenue to restrict unnecessary traffic to be investigated and developed and included in the city's forward works plan if justified.
Thank you, Director Bowe. We have Mr Steve Walker. Steve, I can see you in the audience. Would you like to please step forward?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Steve Walker, 22 Farnham Street, Bentley. I wanted to raise all these questions in latter 2020. They certainly weren't affected or influenced in any way by statements or commentary of any council member on the subject area. Question 1. Why has City of Canning continually allowed its organisation to be repeatedly exploited, manipulated and used by competing major party candidates for electoral seats at least every 4 years, usually through the print, TV media, in regards to associations, organisations and suburban sporting teams?
CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not believe the city has been exploited, Mr Walker, or manipulated, and certainly where there has been any representation of the city we believe to be inaccurate, this has been identified and managed appropriately.
Thank you. Mr Walker, your second question.
Question 2. What effort has City of Canning and its officers done across the past years to stop certain individual selfish sporting teams, sporting organisations, sporting codes and community groups / community / societal associations / organisations from exploiting City of Canning, its officers, divisional teams and intellectual property through candidates running for WA state elections and their ill-informed, unfair pledges, publicity, commitments, because this ultimately costs the community, the local government, the local authority of City of Canning, the WA state government, its independent state agencies and sometimes the federal government too.
CEO.
Mr Walker, the city seeks to provide accurate advice and information on its funding priorities and objectives, and we cannot control the commentary or actions of community sporting associations and clubs or other groups. Where the city is misrepresented in print or via other platforms, it's within our rights to issue a statement to clarify the position, and we have done so. At the last election, the Labor government committed something in the order of $63 million to various groups, associations within this council, and we fully expect that to be realised by the clubs, associations and council in the coming few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 3.
Question 3. Are City of Canning officers aware that their general statements are being used and misused by often the same organisations and often the same sporting teams in their own selfish approaches to political candidates in the lead up to WA state elections, including claims of mean City of Canning not doing anything, or that City of Canning is doing, it's their priority, they only need the funds?
I'll ask the CEO to address that as well, Mr Walker. CEO Corrin.
My response is similar to question 2, Mr. Walker. The city can only be clear on its priorities and its commitments and clarify any misunderstandings or representation as appropriate. I certainly don't subscribe to your opinion in relation to statements being made, and where they have been made, if they have been made, we've addressed them.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming along, Steve. Appreciate that. Judy Potter.
Good evening. I submitted questions and I think there's been some confusion because the 3 questions that I submitted, I was hoping that you could just read and address.
So what we'll actually do...
I do have a statement to make tonight, but...
So what we actually will do with the questions, so just so you know, with the standing orders, the way these meetings run, we can only ask 3 questions from each person, but
yep.
We can't actually determine, I know you actually sent an email and you had the names of all these people, but we can't determine whether or not they really did give, and I don't doubt you for a moment, that they did give you authority to actually ask these questions on their behalf tonight. So they would need to be here tonight or either submit them personally themselves. And I know the staff tried this afternoon to try and call you to see whether we could get that arranged. So what we'll do, obviously you can ask your 3 questions. The rest of those questions will be answered. We will be, I'll just ask the director here beside me to provide what action we will be taking. My understanding is we will be addressing each one of those questions. Director McQuaid.
That's correct. We have received the full list of questions and we will seek to provide a response to those questions. I also have your 3 questions here.
Yeah, you could just,
would you like me to read them and respond?
Because I just compiled questions from all the residents.
Okay.
So as far as names, I can get you several hundred that relate to those questions if need be, and we can come in. But that's why I submitted them, because it was just too many. For this forum.
Judy, unfortunately, you're dealing with a level of government, so of course there's process and protocol, and it's unfortunately those are the law. The rules are the rules.
We'll get them.
So
I'll get
we'll get there in the end. We'll get you the answers.
Yeah, I know you will. I know you will.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Question 1 from Ms. Potter is in response to the petition C00321, response to suggested petition solution, City of Canning. Item number 15, and he's quoted, increase CCTV in problem areas. The city has existing fixed CCTV systems in and around Bentley Library Hub. Additionally, the new Hillview Community Building will be installed. We will see the installation of a number of external CCTV cameras covering the area. Moreover, the development of the Hillview Hub will enable improved passive surveillance through increased community facility use. In response to the petition, the Department of Communities installed additional CCTV cameras around Wamby Park on 18 May 2021. Question A, in our petition, residents asked for CCTV. Why then have you answered with every explanation except our current need of fixed area-wide CCTV? In response to that, Mrs. Potter, the city's current CCTV policy, CS02 closed circuit television CCTV systems policy, is focused only on enhancing the safety and protection of city assets and those who use them. The current policy restricts the use of fixed systems within public spaces. Furthermore, there is a council resolution that this policy be maintained as is and only reviewed every 2 years, but not earlier than 12 months after a local government ordinary election, unless council resolves otherwise. And in light of this, the city is limited in what it can do in relation to fixed CCTV. Question 2, a feasibility study was already done for fixed CCTV. Why would the city need to spend more money to do the exact same thing? Yes, you're correct. In 2017-18, a review of the city's CCTV systems was completed, and in July 2018, Council resolved to support further investigation by way of detailed scoping for the expansion, upgrade and integration of the city's current systems with council facilities and surrounding car parks beyond the current scope of the city's CCTV existing system. The scoping study, which was undertaken by an independent organisation with experience in IT, CCTV and security, was detailed, and it included a full review of our current system, an implementation plan including provision of plans showing locations of notional fixed CCTV sites, detailed infrastructure and capital works requirements and costings for each stage of implementation, a maintenance schedule and an estimated annual costings, and viability assessment and costings for potential locations to house a control room. Whilst the city officers are of the opinion that this work is still current and can easily account for deployment of fixed CCTV to public areas outside the current scope, which would include reserves or parks, for example, this item will be considered later tonight by council as part of a notice of motion for a CCTV feasibility study. Question 3, why can the city not commit to a placement of fixed CCTV cameras in the crime hotspots in Bentley, St James, yet can commit to place them to protect its own projects? As per my answer to question 1, the current CCTV policy does restrict the use of fixed CCTV systems within public spaces and instead focuses on city assets. It should be noted, however, that the current policy does allow for the use of mobile CCTV to deter and investigate offences within researched and targeted locations where local government has the legislative responsibility for enforcement. And since receiving the petition in relation to issues in Bentley and St James, the suburbs of Bentley and St James alone have accounted for 50% of the city's mobile CCTV deployments. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Ms Potter. Thank you. I have Marnie Aldridge.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, Councillors, CEO Kyron and Directors and those in the public gallery. My name is Marnie Aldridge and I live at Minota Avenue in Shelley. With the elections coming up and social media being one of the biggest forms of communication between councillors and residents, my first question is, will there be a social media policy brought before council before this year's elections?
CEO, I don't think there's any plan for that, is there? CEO.
Mrs Aldridge, no, I don't believe we have a plan to do anything along those lines.
Okay, is there a way that we could try to have a policy brought in before the elections coming in about the code of conduct and the actual expectations, requirements of councillors and potential candidates?
So the Model Code of Conduct 2021 already guides the behaviour of councillors, and we only just, I think was it February? We only just signed off on it recently. It was May. We've only just signed off on that, and that's got really strict behaviours there around the use of, the behaviour of councillors generally, but also, of course, in the lead up to elections. For us to actually completely review and bring a policy back before council, I don't think we would be able to do that before the elections, and there is no plan to do that at the moment because we don't feel at the moment it's warranted.
So there is not one single social media policy in place for anything?
The social media policy is actually, the state government's released a paper in relation to the model code, which particularly talks about social media and the requirements that all elected members must abide by. So that is actually a legislative instrument. It actually takes precedent over any policy of a local council. Mm-hmm. So that would be our guidance, our guiding light at the moment. It takes precedent. We must abide by that because it's a legislative instrument. So that's already in place.
Okay.
And your third question?
Well, yes, I think it was probably still linked in there. So there is a clear code of conduct and ethics for councillors and candidates in media as well as social media. I'm just concerned there's certainly different understandings between different councillors and candidates about what's acceptable and what is appropriate and what is actually able to be done. I think some people are able to do some things and some people aren't, and there's not a clear way of knowing exactly what's expected and what is allowed.
I think it is clear.
There is?
CEO.
Okay, terrific. My last...
that is your last question. You've asked 3 questions.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, but the answer to that question, I'll get the CEO to give you probably a little bit more elongated question, but in my view, it is very crystal clear. CEO?
Not going to be too much longer, Mayor. There are requirements being set aside for the Code of Conduct applying to candidates as well as elected members leading up to the next election, local government election. So it is clear, it is a model code of conduct. It makes provision across all local governments in this state, so there's a consistent standard that will apply.
Great. Thank you.
And just finally on that, just to finish off on that, the CEO's right. Even candidates now are required to abide by the model code. If they are actually elected, they will then be held to account for any breaches they might have occurred as candidates. So that hasn't happened before. So the state government tried really hard to, meet community expectation around this matter, and I think they have. We'll see. This will be the first election since that model code's been brought in, so we'll see what happens from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aldridge.
Good evening, Council. Richard Aldridge, 5 Minota Avenue. Can the City please confirm that CEO Chiron made a disclosure of interest for OC 004-21, the appointment of the Interim Chief Executive Officer on the 18th of May?
CEO, I might get you to address that.
I wish you'd asked me that question before tonight, so I can confirm that when if I able to research that paper. If it was the last item that went to council regarding the appointment of Mr. Kane as your interim CEO, the answer is no. I did not make a disclosure because nothing in that report applied to my employment, given it's finishing in about 8 working days.
Thank you. And could you, thank you. And could you also please confirm that CEO Chiron was the responsible officer for the report on the same matter?
Chiron?
The report was written by the West Australian Local Government Association, as I needed to, I chose to be at arm's length from it. However, because an officer has to be, officer's name and title has to be attached to a report, it was deemed to be my report to council, albeit written by another organisation.
And your final question, Mr. Aldridge?
Thank you. My last question is, has the CEO of the City of Canning prepared and implemented an employee code of conduct in compliance with the Local Government Act and administration regulation requirements? And if they have, when will it come before council to be adopted?
CEO.
Mr. Aldridge, that's being developed by our human resources area, and that'll come to council in due course. Yeah, a draft one. So at this stage, that's not going to be considered while I'm the CEO, so it'll be the interim CEO who have to deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Aldridge.
Thank you.
Are there any other further questions from the public gallery before we close public question time? Thank you. We'll close public question time now. I've got the time as 6:25 p.m. At item 7, the confirmation of minutes, the recommendation is on screen, or will be very soon. The confirmation minutes from the ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday, the 18th of May 2021. Councillors, the recommendation is on the screen. Can I please have a mover? Mover. Thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo, a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Spencer Teo, unless you've got something to add, we'll go straight to the vote.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Let's put the matter to the vote.
The motion to confirm council minutes has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. We move on to item 8, the receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. The City's received a petition containing 6 verified elector signatures from Mrs Kristen and Mr Scott Warmington regarding excessive noise at Gilman Way in Ferndale. The prayer of which reads, "We, being citizens of the City of Canning, hereby petition that the council look into the excessive noise emanating from the carport garage at 11 Gilman Way in Ferndale. The excessive noise is causing serious health and well-being issues. One resident has had to leave her job of 23 years as she worked a weekend." The recommendation is on the screen. The recommendation is that the matter be referred to the Chief Executive Officer for action. And the recommendation is also on page 3 of tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover, please, for that matter? Councillor Bain, thank you. Councillor Barry as a seconder. Councillor Bain?
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Barry, did you have a question?
Similar, thank you.
Thank you. Let's put the matter to the vote, councillors.
The motion to receive the petition has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. At item 8.2 on tonight's agenda, presentations, there are none this evening. At item 8.3, deputations. A deputation has been approved for Miss Judy Potter regarding CO 003 of 21, being the response to petition community safety in Bentley and St James. Please come forward, Judy. And you've got 10 minutes.
Hopefully.
Or up to 10 minutes.
Hopefully it won't take that long.
Terrific.
All right, I wrote it out. Lord Mayor and council members, I speak tonight on behalf of many of the residents in Bentley St. James that do not feel that they have a voice nor the wherewithal to stand before you. We residents would like to acknowledge the help of the senior members of the police force who have been cleaning up our neighborhoods, the rangers, all the city staff that have helped us, the ministers, and to the mayor that was the first to extend his hand. We would also like to thank any of you that we do not realize maybe or have been helping us in our quest to be safe in our homes and neighborhoods. Many in our community have language barriers. Many are in the area because of housing affordability. Others are in the community because this is where they have been placed. We each have a story. When the residents of Bentley St. James started this petition, they had hoped their voices would be heard and their elected officials would and could help them be safe in their own homes. Through their eyes, that is as simple as it was. It was believed that crime and safety affects us all. Many did not know who was who, the alliances, what had come before, nor the navigation of asking for help to be safe in our own spaces. Nor did many of us know you, Mr. Mayor, nor the other members of council, and other elected government persons as well. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Nor did many of us know you, Mr. Mayor, nor the other members of council. We were a blank page, so to say. Many of us formed our opinions of our mayor, police, council, and the other elected government persons, as well as the many city employees along the way. We bumbled our way to where we are tonight. Many of us have learned far more than we ever wanted to know in the last few months about drugs, politics, and the integrity and character of the men and women who represent us. At times, we felt we were caught up in a political spy novel, which, to be honest, was intimidating and continues to have a severe impact on residents who witnessed and experienced it. Foul language, challenging behaviors, perceived leveraging, and intimidation, lack of empathy to your constituents who cannot help you further your political careers. It's unacceptable behavior no matter where you are in the world. Many residents are not satisfied with the council's response to the petition. We expect council to yet address our need for better lighting in our problem areas and to install fixed CCTV in the crime hotspots within our community, period. We do not want to wait on more feasibility studies or waste more funds the city does not have. The city does not have. Our lives and our safety are of utmost importance. We ask you tonight to please find an immediate way to brighten our streets at night and install CCTV in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy, for coming along. Appreciate that. We move now to item 9, being applications for leave of absence, and there are none this evening. Item 10, questions by members of which due notice has been provided. There are none. At item 11, items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery. I will be bringing forward CO 003 of 21, response to petition, community safety in Bentley and St James. We have the head petitioner here in the room, and so I think that would be fitting. And also we'll be bringing forward NOM 004 of 21, CCTV feasibility study. So those will be brought forward for the public gallery. We move on to item 12, being reports of committee meetings. Councillors, the recommendation is on page 4 of the agenda and is on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? Councillor Ponaturai. I have a seconder in Councillor Spencer-Teo. Councillor Ponaturai.
Nothing to add, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer-Teo.
Nothing to add either, thank you.
Councillors, anyone wish to speak for or against? Thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote.
The motion to receive the Audit and Risk Committee minutes have been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you very much, councillors. The matter's been carried. We'll now refer to reports. The first report, therefore, will be the item that will be brought forward, which is CO 003 of 21. I'll just give governance a moment to catch up. Thank you, Governance. Councillors, the item is on page 195 of tonight's agenda and is on the screen now. Thank you to Governance. We have the matter on the screen in front of you as well. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? Councillor Barry, a seconder. Councillor Spencer Teo. Councillor Barry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I understand that this is really only to receive this report, but I will speak to it and ask a couple of questions. I mean, I understand Judy's concern, along with the other 299 people who did sign that petition. I could just say that last night, myself, Councillor Sabiri, Councillor Bain and Deputy Mayor attended the neighbourhood watch meeting where we had the police in attendance, and once again most of the things that I find that are written within this report were echoed in that meeting. Now, I suppose from my perspective I can understand the continued concern of the people in Bentley St James area with the crime that they're experiencing. Although we did find out last night that also I think Cannington was the major one that the Cannington Police Station have problems with in relation to petty crime. I think it was Cannington. Willerton was another second. I think Bentley and Beckenham were the main concerns. Once again, it was outlined by the police just as to what they are capable of. I mean, one example that they gave, which was quite shocking really, was the fact that because there's so many young children now that are perpetrating these crimes, I mean, basically the police were saying that now anybody who's 11 and under cannot be held responsible for any crime they commit. And once again, the sergeant said that, you know, they have children coming up, and I'm presuming the people of Bentley and St James experience something similar, and they just spit on them and say all sorts of things. In saying that, once again, we have to look at it from the perspective of the demographics of Bentley St James, while the survey figures and that we do have don't seem to justify the level of concern that 300 people put on a signature. Nevertheless, they are as real as we are all tonight in this room, and therefore I would say that, you know, they are respectful in the fact that they've put this petition through and consider themselves to be probably a little bit more in the gun than everybody else. Maybe we don't all understand. Maybe the city hasn't made itself abundantly clear, although it is written out in the report tonight just what the city and the police can do. And I mentioned in the AB the other night that when we keep, CIFA seems to be the latest and greatest word that we all go by to compare ourselves to other suburbs, and I think I said then it was either 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6, the lowest CIFAs in the city of Canning occur, the suburbs are in the Mason ward. So as for the CCTV, like you said, that'll come up later as a feasibility study. I understand once again what Judy was saying about monies. Well, like with questions on notice, etc., there's a certain protocol, there's a certain process we have to go through, and we have to go through that. If we were flush with funds, we'd do it, I'm sure. But once again, there is all those privacy issues, legislation that doesn't allow, as we found out last night, even the police can't go in with body cameras on into certain people's place and listen and film certain things. So what I would say in the end is that, yes, I'll move this, but I understand their concerns, and I think there needs to be a level of consideration for these areas into the future, whether it's by the city and or by with the people of the suburbs ringing up the waypole, and they are given probably a level of consideration a little bit more, as like the police said last night. Well, Rossmoyne and Shelley and stuff like that, they're basically down there, they're running bikes up and down Riverton Drive. It's not quite the same as burglary, assault, physical and or otherwise. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo.
I support the officer recommendation, have nothing more to say. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, I also strongly support the officer's recommendation, and like Councillor Barry, I just have a couple other comments to make as well. And I think it's important that what Councillor Barry said and what came out of the meeting at the Neighbourhood Watch, I'll just draw on a couple of comments out of that. But with the stats that are collected, the stats are everything according to police. So it's very important that whenever anything is occurring in your suburb, it needs to be reported immediately to the police, so that they can record the stats. Otherwise, if they haven't got that information, they won't be able to see what's going on, and they won't be able to deploy their resources. So no matter how significant, how minor you may think it is, whether it's threatening behaviour, whether it's antisocial behaviour, whether it's stealing with violence, robberies, anything like that that you're a witness to, make sure that the police do know about it so that they see it. The other thing that I'll mention also is that, CCTV has been mentioned quite a lot, and just remember that that is only just one slice of the pie when it comes to responding to criminal behaviour. It's an important piece, but it's only one slice of the pie. I think for council, I still think that we do have a big role to play here. And although that our community safety areas are highly stretched and under-resourced, I think that when the community like Bentleigh and St James call out for help, I think that there is an opportunity there for us to review what we currently do. For example, I think that perhaps we don't pay so much attention to patrolling empty warehouses at night time, and maybe redeploy some of those patrols to areas like Bentleigh and St James where people are crying out for assistance. Because what I do think, based on my experience, I do know that high visibility patrolling is a very effective deterrent in reducing crime, and also lighting, and that's been mentioned. So those are the 2 points I'd just like to make, Mr. Mayor. I think we do have a role as a council, and I think we can help these people. So I strongly support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, I'll just say, obviously, I support the officer's recommendation. Thank you. I think Judy's here tonight. She would tell you that this is more around building trust between the community, the police, and probably even council. And perhaps it shouldn't have taken a petition by 300 people to come down to council before we had people stepping forward to involve themselves in something we had always known occurred. I was very fortunate to have been raised in Shelley, a leafy suburb on the other side of the tracks, where I guess the average house price is about $800,000 or something. And I'm embarrassed to say that the only time I really had spent an awful lot of time through that area had been in the 20 years I spent as a police officer patrolling through there. So, you know, it's been an immense education for me personally to see the need in that area, the amount of crime that's in there. I'm very pleased going forward that in recent months we really have engaged the police in a very meaningful way. We're getting terrific responses from the local police. The people in that area are actually seeing real results in real time, and that's making a difference to people's homes, to people's lives. So without any further ado, if there's no other comments, Councillor Barry's no need to rebut. No one's spoken against the matter. We'll put it to the vote.
Motion CO-003-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. The matter's been carried. We'll move to the second item we're bringing forward this evening, and that's the notice of motion by Councillor Barry. It's notice of motion 005 of 21. Sorry. The notice of motion is exploration. Oh, where am I? Sorry. Feasibility study for CCTV. It's 004 of 21, not 05. Councillor Barry has moved the motion. Thank you, Councillor Barry. I'll second it from the chair. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I suppose at the risk of repeating myself in relation to the previous motion, I probably should have anticipated that this would happen. But as I'll read my rationale again anyway. So, of recent times there seems to have been reported via the media, both electronic and printed, an upward trend in criminal activity within the public realm. It's either real or perceived, and neither really matters one way or the other. This has recently been brought to attention by a 300 signature petition relating to antisocial behaviour and petty criminal activity in the Bentley St James area, and which also seems to be active in most suburbs of the city at times to a larger or lesser degree. And once again, I mentioned that it's not just Bentley St James, Cannington and Willetton, two other suburbs that are experiencing an upward trend in petty crime and antisocial behaviour. CCTV as a surveillance tool, as either benign or active surveillance, as Councillor Sweeney has said, is one of a number of deterrents, whether it's by private or state government agencies. It can be assumed that over the future years there will be a substantial growth in the population figures in Canning, and with all probability a proportional growth in crime, either drug abuse or petty crime. In saying this, the city should consider its obligations and responsibilities to the community at large in relation to CCTV and how we contribute to a safer future community before embarking on any major CCTV reform, either in the public realm or offering greater incentives for private installations. The city should undertake a feasibility study to provide the costings of such a scheme. The feasibility study should also identify whether the city would be in a financial position to absorb any identified costs in-house, or whether there is an appetite for shared responsibility for all ratepayers to contribute, either federal, state, grant funds, either through proceeds of crime or other strategic safer communities policies. This will inform the future of the council and the decisions. And just moving on from there, I note there was a question in question time in relation from Ms Potter in relation to the feasibility study, and we don't want one now. Well, I sort of tend to agree with that, but we know that basically all of the CCTV stuff that we have done in the past was essentially on city assets and city assets alone. Now, basically what I'm saying here is that I think we need a feasibility study, not for tomorrow, but it's basically for the future. Because like I said, there will be a population increase. For me, I think, like I said, it's one of a number of deterrents. I mean, I think a guard dog and some good lighting and maybe your own personal CCTV. Whether we can, within that feasibility study, find out a way, whether there's government funds or whether we can provide some extra incentives from a monetary perspective for people with private CCTVs, which in turn could be directed straight to Waypol for them to have a look at. I think that would be a great idea, which could be covered within a feasibility study. So look, I'm not going to go over what we've done before with votes on CCTV and all the rest of it. All I'm saying is that I think we need something for the future. I don't think it'll come anywhere near $25,000 because, as Director McQuaid said, we have a lot of the stuff, and we discussed this last week, that probably can be used again, but I think we need a contemporary figure because 2018 to now, I mean, just with COVID itself, it's a different world altogether now. And I think, once again, now that COVID's down, and we hope that it doesn't come back, but there's no guarantee of that, but the young crooks are restless now and they're out and about again. I mean, it's going to probably drop off a little bit now because it's winter, but we all know come summer it'll be full blown again. But the fact of the matter is, I still think we need a feasibility study done now, and I would ask for council support. Thank you.
Thank you. As a seconder, I speak against the motion. I'd like to propose an alternate motion, councillors, and I hope it will be supported. I've asked governance to put that up on the screen. The alternate motion will simply be that Council requests the Chief Executive Officer to present Policy CS033, the use of monitoring technology to elected members at a workshop in order that we can establish a policy position and strategic framework for the use of monitoring technologies within the city. And such workshop to occur prior to 30th of September 2021. Look, I won't go on too long. Councillor Barry may not want to talk about past decisions of council, but I'm certainly happy to, because on the 19th of May, council resolved not to endorse CS03, which would have been the use of monitoring technology and allowed us to have CCTV in places that are now being requested by our community who are under siege in some areas. I then brought the decision back to council in July and asked for it to be reconsidered, and it was also lost at that time. And currently council has a CCTV policy which is completely out of date, not fit for purpose, and I think we all understand that. But we don't have a monitoring technology policy that is actually broad-based and will allow us to do a whole range of different things, including CCTV in the public realm, and consider those matters. In relation to tonight's feasibility study, I too believe it's a complete, absolute waste of time at a time when, as Councillor Barry said himself a moment ago, in relation to the petition, we'd probably look at some of those things in the petition if we were flush with funds, but we're not flush with funds, so why would we spend another $25,000 or so? And I don't agree with Councillor Barry's summation that it'll come in way less than that. I'm not certain why he would think that. So why would we spend more money on this without at least bringing the matter back so that we as a council can understand what the community wants of us? So I'm thinking at the moment, councillors, that we could perhaps just not bring the policy back. We just have a workshop to decide on a policy position for the council and to see how we can actually involve ourselves in what needs to be doing. So we're not bringing back the policy. We're certainly having a conversation around the policy at a workshop where we can all raise our concerns and look at a way forward. So yes, I agree that we need to bring that back, and it needs to be done at a workshop. But this feasibility study, in my mind, it just lacks clarity. Councillor Barry's asked for a feasibility study into the purchase cost, installation and maintenance and future operation costs of a CCTV network, but I've got no idea what a CCTV network is. How big is it? Where does it run? Are we talking about passive technology? Are we talking about passive CCTV? Are we talking about active CCTV? What exactly is it that Councillor Barry is asking? And if the city is not able to take direction from the motion in front of it, then how then will they arrive at a feasibility study that's somehow going to miraculously come in at less than $25,000? So I think, councillors, I would ask you, please, don't support this feasibility study. The community are here tonight telling you they don't want another feasibility study. The officer's recommendation is that we do not have another feasibility study. The feasibility study has been done. That was the significant report that came to council in May and again in July. There was our feasibility study. We know what needs to be done. We simply need to discuss it as a council, but probably behind closed doors in a workshop where we can actually, have differing opinions and arrive at a policy position. So I'd ask you, please, follow the officer's recommendation, which is not to support this feasibility study because it is lacking clarity. It's going to cost us money that we don't have right now. And let's not put the cart before the horse. We need to arrive at a policy position before we can look at a feasibility study. So once we know what it is that we want to achieve, then perhaps we can look at a feasibility study. But to throw money, public money, at a feasibility study when we don't have a policy position to support it is just ill-founded. So I especially ask those councillors that may have voted previously against the CCTV policy to perhaps now, with the community here in front of us, demanding that we actually take some action and take some steps forward on this matter, to please just rethink your own position in light of what we now know, and at least support a workshop so we can talk about the issue and arrive at both a framework and also a policy position that can be rightly...
Mr Mayor, your time's up.
I'd like to ask for an extra few minutes to finish off. Motion to council, please. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Spencer Teo. Councillors, I'd like just another 60 seconds just to finish off. A vote, please. Thank you.
The motion to extend the Mayor's talk time on debate is being carried 8 in favour, 2 against, with Councillor Porter and Sabiri voting against.
Thanks, councillors. Just to finish off, I just wanted to say that, look, my strong view, and I hope you support it, is that whilst we all know we need to do something, this motion by Councillor Barry is not the answer. It's really a solution trying to find an answer, or an answer trying to find a solution, but this does not tick the boxes. We need to have a policy position before we can move towards looking at feasibility. And I know there will be those amongst you here that will argue the opposite, but please, can we arrive at a position tonight of solidarity on this issue in front of our community, and at least arrive at an alternative motion? Let's defeat this feasibility study and move to an alternate that we can all support, and then come back to council at some stage with that feasibility study. Thank you. That's all I've got to say. I'm speaking against it. Thank you. Anyone else?
Speaking for, next.
Next, someone speaking, do I have anyone speaking for the feasibility study? Against? Councillor Spencer Teo?
Yeah, I was not going to support this nom, purely based on the fact that the work has already been done. And in agreement with you, Mr Mayor, the $25,000 of ratepayer funds to learn what we already know is, in my opinion, a waste of time and money. Councillor Sweeney said that, CCTV is a slice of a pie, but it's the only slice of the pie that local government actually gets to have involvement in community safety. Our community safety officers and rangers don't have police powers. If these culprits don't respect their own neighbours, how on earth are they going to respect our staff? If CCTV helps people of Bentley feel safe, then we have an obligation to provide that to them. In addition, I would imagine that a lot of our rentals reside in Bentley and St James area. CCTV is a fitting or fixture to a premise that isn't owned by a lot of the residents, and a lot of landlords would be reluctant to install this. And few tenancies allow dogs without large bonds, so we're increasing the costs to our our tenants, our community members to feel safe when we could actually provide that if we had a policy to allow us to. So I was going to say that I would certainly endorse another review of our CCT policy, but I believe that your motion, Mr Mayor, covers that, so I would happily support that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Kunza.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I speak against the notice of motion. I feel like I'm in bizarro world here. I really feel for Mr Mellon and his staff. Back in 2019, I mean, we had a special council meeting. Nobody moved the motion. Came back a month later. Council voted against implementing a CCTV network. The strategy looked at various things. I mean, we spent $28,000 plus whatever was before that, getting to that point. At the time, a number of councillors were concerned with the economic climate and investing in something like that. I myself tried to push it back, defer it a bit, and councillors said, doesn't matter whether we do it this year, next year, we shouldn't be spending money on that. The economic climate's got worse since then. For the life of me, I can't work this out. So council knocked that back when it didn't just look at, the report provided by staff didn't just look at locations on council property. It also took into consideration if a policy change happened at some point. Council knocked it back. Subsequently looked at a policy change, council knocked it back. And then now we're looking at this. Why would we spend $25,000 on a feasibility study? I mean, again, I feel sorry for staff, what to think. I just, a workshop sounds like a practical solution, Mr Mayor. I think we do need to get to a point that's palatable with the community. I mean, my memory is it's actually a high point in the council surveys regarding council taking more action to deal with crime within the community. So we're in a position where we're sort of, our policy and what we're funding is not meeting community expectations, and we need to, I guess, rectify that. But I don't know why we'd spend $25,000 going through this process again. Again, bizarre world. I won't support this.
Thank you. Councillor Yasso Ponaturai. Yasso.
Thank you. I just have a quick question through Mr. Mayor. People's safety is very important there now economically. I mean, economically, we might be in a financial tight situation now with the budget or whatever, but I believe that because everyone pays rates, and so we should pay more attention to the people's safety. My just quick question, whether it's through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director Community Development. Are you comfortable that all of Councillor Barry's requests have been included into the petition, what they've asked, and are you comfortable for us to go ahead with that? And of course, the policy is going to come a bit later, in sometime in September. But your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Director McKay.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just to clarify your question, you're asking me if I feel that through the work that's already been done, it addresses the item asked for by Councillor Barry. Is that correct? Yes. Yes, as per the report, the city does believe that the feasibility study and scoping study that was undertaken and presented to council in 2019 does provide for the expansion to the public realm. The Zenian report, attachment 3, attached to it, the Zenian implementation schedule actually speaks to the opportunity for the scalability of the proposed solution to enable the public realm, and also provides indicative costings of what would need to be incorporated if there were a policy change position that would enable us to expand CCTV into public realm. So the Zenian report certainly does provide all of the information, and if there are concerns about whether the costs in the report are still accurate, as per the report, we could simply go back to Zenian and ask them to review that and that work that they've undertaken.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Did you have another question? You're right. Councillor Sweeney.
Yes, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Firstly,
speaking for or against?
I am speaking against this motion.
Okay.
But I would like to make one or two comments, and that is that in relation to what Councillor Spencer-Teo has said, I don't agree with that at all. I think that CCTV is just one slice of the deterrent mechanism that we look at when we attack criminal behaviour. But I think our community safety officers do have a patrolling role, and I think they play a very important role, and that should not be underestimated. And I think that they're not just safety officers. We're talking about officers that have had training. They're actually licensed security officers. They've had training, and I think that the community at Bentley and St James would feel a lot safer knowing that they're either seeing one of our safety cars driving by, or actually one of our guys get out of those cars and go for a foot patrol and go for a walk around. I think they would feel a lot safer than merely just looking up at a CCTV camera that is not monitored at all. So I do think that we have a greater role here, and I think that there is a role for our community safety. I don't think they should be underestimated. And you know, they are the eyes on the street for the police. They do a very good job, and they report back to the police a lot of things, and from that information, a lot of things do occur. So I think that that is very, very important to acknowledge. And although I do speak against this motion, I do like the idea of having a workshop about CCTV, and I think somebody else just said it before, you know, perhaps this maybe is putting the cart before the horse. And out of that workshop, you know, the last feasibility study that was done was a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Technology has changed in a big way over the last couple of years. So out of that workshop, there may be something, maybe not a feasibility study, but there may be some other study that might come out of that will be something positive for the city that we can use to help the people of St James and Bentley. So for me at this time, I will speak against this motion, but I am looking forward to sitting down with other councillors at this workshop. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Can I just have a quick look at your wording for your foreshadowed motion, please?
Governance, can I just get back on screen?
And I'll just got my comments. I'll speak to it while we've got that up. So I have thought about this. I had a bit of a moment a few weeks ago. I think a threshold's been crossed, and I think we have little choice but to go back and workshop this. I had some privacy issues previously, but I think that we're hands being forced a bit, so I will support the foreshadowed motion. Just quickly, I went down to the local McDonald's with my daughter and my wife a few weeks ago, and there was pretty bad antisocial behaviour in that whole street, and it got me thinking we've got to do more. So that's pretty much my moment. I've also seen some pretty bad things in some areas that I feel responsible for, and I think that we have to, as technology improves, we cannot ignore this field. I know that we looked at this a few years ago for largely council assets, but I think there's great benefit in workshopping it. We'll see what we can do. We'll see the new technology. We'll see the costings. And that may formulate a change in the position of council. I don't want to rush this, but I know Councillor Barry and me are from Mason Ward, and we have a few issues in some of those suburbs, and I thank him for his work on this issue. However, I think the better motion is the foreshadowed motion that the Mayor has put up. So I'll be voting for that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak before? Councillor Sabiri.
Thank you. I don't speak in favour of this motion, unfortunately. I think $25,000 again is just something we can't afford at this moment, and so that's why I wouldn't also support the officer recommendation at the end of our report. But I do agree it's good to have maybe a workshop. However, I probably wouldn't support having unattended CCTV cameras. I do agree with Councillor Sweeney that people on the ground probably more valuable and make us feel safer as a community rather than just CCTVs. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. If no one else wishes to speak, I might ask Councillor Barry. Did you want to rebut Councillor Barry?
Yeah, but I don't think it's worth responding. I mean,
It's up to you. Yep.
well, that's it. I mean, you can see the writing on the subway walls for this one, so I'll let it go to the vote, and we'll see what happens with the next one. Thank you.
Councillors, thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote. So we're voting on the substantive motion as we have it at the moment. If this matter is not supported by council, we'll then move to the foreshadowed alternative motion as previously seen on screen. Councillors, has put the matter to the vote.
Motion nom-004-21 has been lost. 3 in favour, 7 against. Those voting against are the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and Councillors Bain, Kunza, Sabiri, Spencer Teo and Sweeney.
Did you, Councillor Ponaturo, you're looking at me with a strange look on your face. Did you press the wrong button? Okay, maybe it's best not to answer that. It will have no bearing on the outcome. Councillors, we now move to the alternate motion, which will appear on screen in a moment. I am the mover, obviously, for that motion. Just a second, please, from the floor. Deputy Mayor. Councillors, I won't go on too much on this. Only thing I'd like to say to Ms Potter, who's in the well, I won't say to Ms Potter, but also to the community that, you know, I guess your council is listening to you. You've got an ear here. We're discussing the matter at length. It's being debated, and you know, so there will be an outcome at some stage. So, very much appreciate you coming down, and I also very much hope that council will support this. I can hear from some of the comments made, and even Councillor Sabiri's just most recently, that we do have differing opinions, and that's why we need to arrive at some consensus policy position so that we can move forward responsibly and be able to adapt our approach as a council to the needs of our community. What that will look like, I'm not certain, but I'm certain that we'll come up with a solution, and let's hope we can do that in the short term. One thing I didn't mention, and I should have as the Mayor, Ms Potter, you mentioned in your deputation about poor behaviour, and you mentioned threatening behaviour and intimidation, and I would like to think, apologise if that's happened first of all, but I'd like to think that you might formalise a complaint if you believe that that has actually occurred, and I have no doubt that what you've said is true. That's all I'd like to say on that matter. But councillors, I won't say any more on this matter. Deputy Mayor, over to you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Support the workshop going ahead to establish a policy position and strategic framework for the use of monitoring technologies. Yeah, there's a few things that have happened recently. Mr Lombardi, what happened to him on our streets was particularly confronting to me, and what's happened to a few things in the neighbourhood, like cars being stolen at 7:15 a.m. in the morning, people forcing entry to get the car keys to take the car, and so I think we need to redouble our efforts. I'm not foreshadowing which way we'll go on this, but I think it's of value to have a workshop to get all the information, the costing. I think that we just can't protect our assets and say to everybody else, oh, you know what, you're on your own. There's a few suburbs that have really taken the brunt of this, and a few of those are in my area. So I have to look at what we can do, because I have a duty of care to make sure that we can do all we can. We may be doing all we can, but we just need to review it and see. I also get the arguments from Councillor Sweeney, Councillor Sabiri. This might not be the whole thing. Definitely, it's a wedge that we need to look at while balancing some legitimate privacy concerns. There's some places overseas where they've taken it to the sort of Orwellian levels, but we'd have to work through that, the privacy issues, and how do we help people keep our suburbs safe and for our residents. So that's all, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillors, if there's no one wanting to say any more, I think we might just put the matter to the vote.
The foreshadowed motion for NOM-004-21 has been carried unanimously with 10 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Ms Potter, for coming along this evening. You can feel free to stay later. I'm not trying to get rid of you. At item 13, reports, we move now to the Office of the CEO. There are no reports from the Office of the CEO. At item 13.2, we move to item CC 025 of 21, the title of that report being Review of Delegations of Authority 2020 and 2021. The responsible officer being Mr Stephen Kane, Director, Canning Corporate and Commercial. The officer's recommendation is on the screen and the recommendation is also on page 6 of tonight's agenda. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Ponaturai, thank you. Seconder will be Councillor Spencer Teo. Councillor Ponaturai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just reinforcing why we give the delegation of authority to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of the organisation administrative process and to ensure that the appropriate officers have been provided with the right level of authority to get on their responsibilities and to discharge their responsibilities and to ensure that the delegated authority is exercised by the most appropriate and best informed individuals within the organisation, so we can all ensure that all the internal controls are effective and the organisation work efficiently. So I would like all my councillors to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ponaturai. Councillor Spencer Teo.
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against this item? No? Councillors, we may just put the matter to the vote then. Thank you.
Motion CC-025-21 has been carried unanimously by an absolute majority, 10 in favour. Thank you.
We move to item CC 026 of 21, being the title of that report being Proposed Pedestrian Access Way Closure and Road Reserve Dedication, Lot 3090 Rwanda Way in Parkwood. The officer's recommendation is now on the screen and it also appears on page 21 of tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover for that item, please? Councillor Spencer Teo and a seconder, which will be Councillor Bain. Councillor Spencer Teo.
There have been no submissions received and no objections, so I don't see why we should. I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bain, have you got anything else to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the officer's recommendation as it is appropriate and needed for the nearby residents to redevelop their land. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the matter? No. Councillors, let's put the matter to the vote. We move to CC 027 of 21. Oh, sorry, we'll call the vote. Sorry, Governance.
Motion CC-026-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Jacobs and Councillor Kunzu have left the room just momentarily. We move to CC 027 of 21, proposed disposal and sale of a portion of number 22 in brackets lot 301 Elizabeth Street in East Kennington. The officer's recommendation is almost on screen. It is now. Thank you, Georgia, and also appears on page 27 of tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover for this item, please? Councillor Barry. Thank you, Councillor Barry, and a seconder. Councillor Bain. Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Barry.
Yes, I support this, Mr Mayor. Anything that we can do to expedite a bit of extra development in the East Kennington area. It's been underdeveloped for many, many years, so let's go with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain.
Yeah, I support the officer's recommendation, Mr Mayor, that the proposed sale be advertised for comment. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Any other councillor wish to speak against the matter before we put it to the vote? Thank you, councillors. Let's put this matter to the vote.
Motion CC-027-21 has been carried 9 in favour, noting Councillor Kunza was absent for the vote.
Thank you, Governance. We move to CC 028 of 21, the report being the award of contract, automatic irrigation system and pump station for Wildback Public Golf Course. The officer's recommendation is on screen and also appears on page 34 of tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo is the seconder. Deputy Mayor.
I support this. Wildback needs a new irrigation system. New ground water services has the technical ability. It's a shame that no other companies in WA seem to have that same capability. Wellback Public Golf Course is a very well attended and used facility of the City of Canning. I think we need to put the irrigation system in to ensure that residents and people that have come from other areas can enjoy sport, enjoy the facility, enjoy Canning into the medium to long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Spencer Teo.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Any councillor wish to speak against the matter? Thank you. Let's put this one to the vote.
Motion CC-028-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. We move to CC 030 of 21, title of the report being the budget review as at 31st of May 2021. The recommendation is on screen, also appears on page 42 of the agenda. Can I have a mover, please, councillor? Mover. Councillor Ponaturai, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Spencer Teo. Councillor Ponaturai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move this, and I think we have had some detailed discussions at the AB, and I'm happy to move this one at the moment. Thank you.
We certainly did. Thank you very much. Councillor Spencer Teo, anything to add?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Anyone wish to speak against the matter? Well, let's put it to the vote. Thank you.
Motion CC-030-21 has been carried by absolute majority with 10 in favour.
We move to CC 033 of 21, title of the report being Monthly Financial Report of May 2021. The recommendation is on page 66 of the agenda and is on screen. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kunza, thank you, Councillor Kunza, and a seconder is Councillor Spencer Teo. Councillor Kunza.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Spencer Teo.
Nothing to add either, thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against this matter? Councillor Barry, you didn't receive answers to the questions you sent through to the administration during the week?
Actually, I didn't send them through, Mr. Mayor. You can see by the quantity of reading material we've had. That was a bit of an impossibility even for me with the time I have at my disposal.
Okay, go ahead. I'll allow a
Apart
question.
from that, yes, look, really just some queries on the warrant listings.
How many questions have you got, Councillor Barry?
Just a couple.
Yeah, okay, let's keep it to a couple.
Okay. You can take them on notice if you wish, but some I'd probably require some sort of an answer.
Okay.
Okay, so Bright, and I'll use the one that was given to me here, Bright. It'll be supplier number 12369, Bright Yellow Productions, photography and video services, 6,000. 12515, Corinthian Park Tennis Club, that's 98,000, and it comes under Club and Society Service. I just want to know what that is.
Okay.
One that intrigued me a little bit was 12532 under Audit and Insurance Services, 3,666 to a Shane Hogan. Now, there was a number of other audit insurance that I did have a squiz out on the Google, but Shane Hogan comes up as a private investigator working for a firm. Is there a reason why we would be having the service of a private investigator?
Are we able to answer that question tonight? Do you want to take that on notice? We'll take that on notice. The other two, we able to answer those?
And that was probably about it.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll get answers to you on those.
Yes, please do.
Will do. Anyone else? Councillor Ponaturi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question through you to Director Kane. Just on the capital expenditure 14 point, A, it says the city's capital expenditure to the end of the month was 25 million against a revised budget of 42 million. So obviously then we have done less capital works, but we have outstanding commitments 12.89 million. Are we sure that we will able to be paid the commitments before end of the year? It depends on number of how many people. It can be 10 people having an invoice to be paid for 12 million, or it can be 50 people.
Director
But
Kane.
do you think that can be managed that before end of 30th of June? Thank you.
Director Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As shown on the graph on the same item, you'll see the Capital Works project is pretty much on track. As you'd normally expect, once you initiate a Capital Works, you're not going to spend all of the money the first month. Some of those will be carried forward works, but I'm comfortable with what Director Bowe has, that the vast majority of our Capital Works will be delivered in time. You often find too, by the way, when we get to 30th of June, whilst we notionally close the books off, we have invoices that we continue to transact and close off over a couple of months that's part of the audit process. So the graph is intended to give you an idea that the Capital Works project is being delivered. It's on track. There'll be some works which we won't start, which will be carried forward, but we're very confident. And as I mentioned there, on the large number of Capital Works projects we've commenced, it's been very, very good to see the effort that's been put in.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, just one question just for Mr. Kane in relation to the community safety levy that we collect. If you could just give me some clarity on, does the levy incorporate also the range of services, or is it purely just for the operating expenditure for the community safety services? Patrolling.
Director Kane.
Thank you. It's purely for the security service. It has some administrative component attached with the city providing the support of that service, but the ranges are funded out of the municipal fund.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Anyone wish to speak against the matter before we put it to the vote? Okay, let's put the matter to the vote. Thank you.
Motion CC-033-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. CC 034 of 21 we move to, which is the title of that report is Amendment to Legal Entity Names for Proposed Land Transactions related to Lot 92 Coulson Way and Lot 114 Vulcan Road, both in Canning Vale. The recommendation is on screen and is also appearing on page 109 of the agenda this evening. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Barry. Thank you, Councillor Barry. Deputy Mayor.
I have nothing to add except just for the benefit of the gallery, the people that were purchasing the land would like to use a different name, so hence what we're doing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the sale. I'd have two questions, that's all.
Go ahead.
Who will foot the bill for this? Will Camco be paying for the city's legal costs for the correct information?
I'll just tackle that one first. Director, can I get you just to advise on the legal fees involved in the change?
There's no additional costs associated with this. We simply add the extra name to the documentation we've got, and it'll be transacted. We have to go through the, as you see, the advertising process again, but there's no additional cost.
No additional cost.
And any legal fees.
Did we get McLeod's opinion for nothing?
Yep, Director Kane, sorry.
Through the chair. We'd only make the legal expenses once we've actually done the advertising. So as we haven't concluded the process, there's no additional cost to us.
Last question is that, given that I think it's, is it 92 we passed in February?
Coulson Way.
Yes. Whichever one it was we passed in February. Now we sent that out for public notice. So that's basically been actioned. So the question I asked is, should we not be revoking that one first to add or make an amendment? I'm not quite sure how we amend a resolution that's been actioned.
Director Kane, is that unnecessary?
So we haven't actioned the other one. The second land transaction was done after the first one, so this is the first transaction coming back. When the second transaction came back, which we just proved recently, the legal names are correct on that one. They've added the fifth. So we're holding that to wait for the resolution of this and do both at the same time.
So no revocation?
No revocation.
Okay.
It's just simply a case of
Thanks, councillors.
going through this process.
Thank you, Director Kane, for your explanation. Councillors, unless someone wishes to speak against it, we'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion CC-034-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. We move on to CD 016 of 21, title of the report being Submission Jandakot Airport Draft Master Plan of 2020. The responsible officer for the following reports will be Mr Graham Bride, the Director of Canning Development. The recommendation, yes, is on screen and also appears on page 114 of the agenda. Can I have a mover? Councillor Sabiri, thank you. And Councillor Kunza as the seconder. Councillor Sabiri.
Well, not a big supporter of clearing the bushland there. I'm happy with the submission the officers have made. I would like that if in the future we have these kind of submissions that the officers actually speak with the local groups that are involved in the area, because that will help with writing submission. They know the area well. They're out there most of the days when they can be, and it'll be great if we take that into consideration. Thank you.
I'm sure it's been noted. It's on the public record, so thank you, Councillor Sabiri. Councillor Kunze, have you anything else to add?
Only to say that I endorse the officer's submission and what's been put together. As Councillor Sabiri just said, it's best that there's no clearing. However, there's certain things that need to be done. That area has already been, I guess, impacted very recently with the expansion of the train line and Metronet, and a significant amount of Banksia woodland been removed. And so I specifically appreciate the staff put in their comments about the fauna crossing and other measures that can be implemented in that area. It's quite important to ensure the ecological linkages. So I endorse the city's submission and hope council does too. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the matter? No? Councillors, let's put this matter to the vote.
Motion CD-016-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. We move to CD 017 of 21, report name being Proposed Amendment of Local Planning Policy, in brackets LP.06, close brackets, Design Review Panel and Assessment of Significant Development. The recommendation is on page 130 of tonight's agenda and is on screen. Thank you, Governance. Can I have a mover, please, for this matter? Deputy Mayor, thank you. And a seconder. Seconder, councillors from the floor. Councillor Barry, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
I support the council officer's recommendation. I think the design review panel and assessment for significant developments provide an important function and lifts the general amenity and architecture of our area. I note that there's also a fee increase which will go to some way to help alleviate the cost that it has on us. I note that won't make us cost neutral, but it's not a zero-sum game. So if I lose money now, I might get money back when the development goes ahead because they're paying rates. So that's what I recognised in my thinking. I think in the future there may be benefit to not only cooperating with Gosnells but to our new partners in Victoria Park and Armidale. So I support this, Mr Mayor, and urge councillors to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Barry.
Yes, no, I support it. Just another question. I'm just wondering whether there's any legal requirements of us with like 5.8 committees. I know this is a panel. It says it's a panel, but we're asking for delegations. So the city can pick the chair and the deputy chair, and not the council. So is there any sort of carry over from that?
Just exactly your question was whether there's a legal requirement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just worried about 5.8. That's all, because that's for committees. I know this is a panel, but there's talk of delegations in here. That, you know, the city will pick the chair and the deputy chair when normally it's council, etc. So that sort of sounds like a committee.
Okay, Director Bride.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, it is an advisory panel, not a committee. In terms of that particular clause in the policy itself, the terms of reference are inserted inside this particular policy, and that line in the policy at the moment reads that council will select the chair. As pointed out in the report, we are suggesting that that can be done outside of council's approval. We've got an independent panel internally that can review the expertise of these panel members. So certainly no issues in relation to that particular clause you referenced. It is an advisory panel, and the policy, if adopted by council, obviously there's only advertising of the policy, but if it comes back to council after advertising and is adopted, then because of that clause is taken out of the policy, it will be then the staff that would make the decision on the chair and the panel members.
Thank you.
So in saying that, is the advisory part, that goes to the developer as well? I mean, there's no compulsion on the developer to follow the guidelines of the design review panel?
Director Bride.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. The developer would go through the process, and we have had good scenarios where the development has improved significantly from the first lodgement. The JDAP and obviously council will be very interested to see what the design review panel has recommended, and there's obviously 10 design considerations, and each of those has a red, amber and green light. So that certainly is taken into account by the decision makers, and the developer would be remiss not to at least try to address a number of the issues that the design review panel makes, and they do that because they realise that where there's discretion, the JDAP or council would want to make sure that all efforts have been made to improve the design to a high calibre.
Thank you, Director. Thank you,
so
Councillor Barry.
In saying that, just to close...
Director, Councillor Barry, is this your final question? I'll allow it if it's your final question.
I'm speaking, I'm seconding.
Sorry?
So I'm just speaking in favour of it.
I didn't know what you're doing. You're speaking in favour of it, eh? Thank you.
Well,
all right, go ahead.
Okay. Bloody hell. I mean, just from the point of view, yes, look, I agree with what Director Bride just said, because we did have some earlier iterations in the 2008 or whatever it was, where we did have a design review panel, and we did have developers who were intent on delivering us with some very tatty stuff, and that, like I said, the earlier iteration stopped that. So I hope this is a little bit better than that. I'm hoping it will. So yeah, let's move on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Does anyone wish to speak against it? In the absence of that, let's put the matter to the vote.
Motion CD-017-21 has been carried unanimously. 10 in favour.
Thank you. We move to CD 018 of 21, title of the report being Request to Waive Planning Fees, Proposed Extension of Community Purpose Use, in brackets, Cannington Agricultural, Horticultural and Recreational Society, close brackets, at 1430 to 1432 Albany Highway, Lot 205 in Cannington. There are a number of declarations of impartiality that were read earlier, mine being in relation to this matter, I am declaring an impartiality. I'm a former member. In fact, I might even be a current member, but I'm not certain. I haven't checked. But irrespective of that, I'm of course able to exercise my decision-making responsibilities as an elected member of this council impartially and in good faith. And Councillor Bain, you have a impartiality declaration as well, disclosure?
Correct, Mr Mayor. So I declare an impartiality interest, as I am a member of the Station Street Men's and I will remove myself from the meeting while it's considered. Thank you.
Well, it's being considered right now, Councillor Bain, so you're leaving. Okay, thank you very much. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. It also appears on page 158 of the agenda this evening. Can I have a mover for this matter? Deputy Mayor. Seconder was Councillor Ponaturai. Deputy Mayor.
I support this motion, Mr Mayor. The Cannington Agricultural and Horticultural and Recreation Society have a long history with them. We obviously, a few years ago, 2020, signed an MOU with them. I see that this is in that spirit. We do a lot of stuff together. I do believe that the Canning show is coming up again soon. I believe that we've been working fairly closely with them to help celebrate our 150th anniversary. I see that this organisation basically shares the same name of the great area that we live in and the river that runs through this area. So without saying too much, Mr Mayor, I think this is a good development. It brings a bit of substance, arguably, to our MOU with them, and I look forward to being able to cooperate with this organisation. They come across to me as a very dynamic and smart organisation. They haven't sold that land to Bunnings. They've simply rented it out, and there's the men's shed there. There's the greyhounds down the back, and it's a great area. So all I see is synergies. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ponaturai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to support this recommendation, and I've been to a number of events, and I know what other activities they have it, and across different industries, opportunities for exhibitions and other shows, and also a number of multicultural community activities as well. So on that ground, I would like to support this officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone wish to speak against this motion? Anyone have anything to say before we move on? Councillor Kunza.
I just want to take the opportunity to commend the Canning Agriculture and Horticulture and Recreational Society for this initiative to actually provide community facilities, and then also staff in that for identifying just a small way that the city can, I guess, assist with making sure this happens. As the Deputy Mayor said, it's an example of how the MOU is working, and as we said for many years, the city and the society should be working far more closely together, and it's great to see that actually happening.
Thank you. Councillor Barry.
Yes, I'd speak in support of this as well, Mr Mayor. I did speak to the directors earlier at a question, but from this perspective, this is a long-standing organisation. They obviously they've got their head screwed on when it comes to their finances, and from the perspective of the city, every building that they build on there that is a community purpose, they will maintain and they will have their business case to go with it, and hopefully they'll make money. But by the same token, every community building that they build is probably one that we don't have to build and maintain. So thank you, and well done to them.
Thank you. Unless there's somebody wishing to speak against the matter, we might just put this one to the vote, I think. Thank you, councillors. Let's put the matter to the vote.
Motion CD-018-21 has been carried with 9 in favour, noting that Councillor Bain left the room. Thank you.
Thank you, and Councillor Bain is just re-entering the room now. Thank you, Councillor Bain. We move to 13.4 on the agenda, the responsible officer being Director Warren Bowe, the Director of Canning Environment. The item is EN008 of 21, the title of that being Loan Funding Agreement, Willetton Basketball Association. Now, in this matter, Council will recall was deferred, adjourned from a previous meeting. So I'll just run through where exactly we are at. The council decision was, let me see.
Mr Mayor?
Yes.
I've got to declare a conflict of interest. I am very
Sorry, I missed
strongly...
that. I've got it right in front of me and I still missed it, Councillor Sweeney.
Yes, yes, I'm strongly in favour and I'm very conflicted, so I'll be leaving the room.
That wasn't an integrity test. I really did miss it. Thanks, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Sweeney, for the record, is leaving the room. Let me see. The previous council meeting, the substantive motion was moved by Councillor Spencer Teo and it was seconded by Councillor Ponaturai. Later in the meeting, Councillor Spencer Teo moved an amendment, which was seconded by Councillor Kunza. And that amendment changed some wording on that, which I guess essentially reduces the term of the loan to 5 years. Councillor Barry spoke on the amendment, but quite frankly did not confirm if he was in support or against the amendment, but that's of no consequence. Councillor Ponaturai spoke against the amendment. What we're going to do is reopen debate now where we left it, pretty much to open debate on the amendment, councillors. So that's where we are at the moment. Sorry, I'll just run through the rest of the preamble. Councillor Kunza then requested a minor change to the amendment, which read, subject to the term of the loan being 3 years. The mover had no objection to this change. However, Councillor Ponaturai did object, and then in accordance with standing orders, no alteration occurred. Councillor Holland then moved a minor change to the amendment that read, subject to the term of the loan being 5 years. The mover then agreed to the change with no objection from the seconder or any other member. The change in terms read then, subject to the term of the loan being 5 years. Councillor Sabiri then moved her procedural motion, which was seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the matter be adjourned, and it has been to tonight's meeting. So we now have the amendment in front of us, which is now on the screen. Councillor Barry, question?
So what you just said then, Mr Mayor, Councillor Spencer Teo, myself, Councillor Kunz and Councillor Holland have spoke on the amendment, therefore we can't speak on the amendment.
No, I think we had a discussion about this earlier. My view was that we're going to speak again on this. So what we were doing was we were speaking on the amendment. You were speaking against the change, but now that the change has actually been, the final change was actually made by Councillor Holland, and Councillor Holland's final change was that the amendment was to read, subject to the term of the loan being 5 years. There were no objections to that from either the seconder or the mover, so that is now the amendment. So now we will speak on the amendment, so you get to speak again on the amendment.
If you wish.
So we're basically resetting the clock, and everybody gets a second chance to speak on the amendment. And just for the sake of it, I'm going to read the amendment. The amendment is only to 3, so we have 1, 2, 3 parts of the motion. The third part will now read, the council authorises the mayor and chief executive officer to affix the common seal to a deed of loan between the City of Canning and the Willetton Basketball Association Incorporated on terms that are consistent with the key terms outlined in this report. The next portion in red is where the change occurs, and that being subject to the term of the loan being 5 years. So that is the amendment as we have it. Now, I believe that now that we have the amendment has been finalised, I think we have councillors, the amendment, we are now debating the amendment. Yes. Councillor Spencer Teo spoken to her amendment. I'm just consulting with governance.
Originally, when she moved it, she would have.
Yeah. So she would have at the point, as the CEO rightly just whispered in my ear very loudly, she would have at the time that she moved the amendment actually spoken to it. Okay, let's move on. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Spencer, you have a question?
I have a bunch of questions, if that's okay.
I'm not going to allow you to ask a bunch of questions. I'll ask you to ask...
7?
No.
6.
Absolutely not. Councillors, look, I kind of alluded to this earlier in the night when Councillor Barry popped his hand up to ask a question. And look, the standing orders are pretty clear, and my fault, I should have been a lot stricter with this earlier in the piece, and I tend to do so. Questions during debate, 6.1 of the standing orders, at any time during debate, a member may ask a question, and with the consent of the presiding officer, may ask one more or further questions with my consent. So, look, we have had an AB last week. Councillors have had ample opportunity to ask questions at that point. We adjourned this matter a month ago. So we've had ample opportunity to ask those questions. We've had a week to ask them, and we had the AB obviously to ask those questions. So I'd probably pick your
With all
best
due
three.
respect, Mr Mayor, all of my questions relate to the letter received from Willetton Basketball Association last night.
I'm going to, my ruling will be, look, I'll get you to ask your first and second question, then I will probably, well, I will rule that unless there's some pressing reason to ask further questions, and they must relate to the item and allow you to make a decision on this matter. So if they're not completely relevant to your decision-making function, I will ask you to probably set those aside and ask them outside of this chamber, but I'm just not going to allow 7 questions unless they're absolutely pertinent and relevant, and I'll rule on those individually. Sorry. You popped up at exactly the wrong time with your 7 questions, Councillor Spencer, to you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the letter received last night from Willetton Basketball Association, they state in the last line that the club is already 2 years into the loan. Why then did city officers recommend 10 years for the loan and not 8?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation was formulated by officers in preparation for the May Ordinary Council meeting agenda. At that time, whilst the WBA had in good faith commenced repayment of some of the outstanding monies, the recommendation was that the city enter into a 10-year loan, and the reason for that 10-year duration, and as identified in the report, that is something that the administration and the WBA have been working towards since 2018, and notwithstanding that the letter does indicate the letter from the WBA does indicate that they're 2 years into the loan, council haven't endorsed the loan yet and certainly haven't arrived at the duration of the loan. As a result, for consistency, we maintain the recommendation that the period of the loan should be 10 years.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer, Teo.
Despite several emails from staff denying any formal agreement to the terms of the loan, the subsequent letter received last night maintains the position that they were promised the 10-year loan by staff, and there was an informal agreement between staff and the association. Is this the case? And if so, who entered into the agreement, or is this merely a misunderstanding?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The correspondence from WBA does mistakenly reference a council resolution that the term of the loan would be up to 10 years. Having said that, the staff and the WBA have been working since October 2018 with an understanding that any outstanding debt at the completion of the Willetton Stadium project would be crystallised into a loan, and that the term of the loan would be up to 10 years. Staff have not promised the WBA a period of 10 years. My position is that we have no authority to do so. It's been my staff's view that any final agreement to the terms of the loan would be referred to council for endorsement.
Do you want to ask a final question? And look, I'm sorry about that, but I think what I'd ask you to do is probably, for those that are probably less important and not completely relevant to your decision tonight, is to reframe those and use those in your closing on the debate on the amendment.
Yeah, finally, obviously in relation to the letter, I can understand the frustration of the Basketball Association, and honestly this whole thing sounds very messy, and it's clearly been exacerbated by the direct contact of councillors. May I ask which councillors have been in direct contact with the association?
I'm not sure if we would know that, and I'm not sure if we're able to answer it. Director?
I agree with you, Mr Mayor. It would not be appropriate for me to comment on this, but the WBA's view is quite clear in the correspondence.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Any further questions, Councillor Barry? Or you wish to speak?
Point of order?
Sorry, yeah, good.
Point of order. Under the standing orders, if the member makes a ruling that the Councillor Spencer can only ask a few questions, I'd ask that the council vote whether to allow her questions or not.
Without knowing what her questions are?
I don't want to get into the
That's your
rationale.
prerogative. I mean, if you wish to dissent,
Yeah, please.
you need to put a motion in.
I'd like to dissent your ruling that she can only ask 2 or 3 questions. If she's got questions that are clearly relevant, I think I'd be happy to listen to them.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Barry? Let's put the matter to the vote. You're voting to dissent against my ruling and to allow Councillor Spencer Tear to continue asking questions. Councillors, I'll ask you just to please speak either through the chair and not to have a conversation amongst yourselves. Thank you.
The procedural motion to disagree with the Mayor's ruling has been carried 9 in favour, noting Councillor Sweeney out of the room.
Go ahead.
Can I just ask, Mr Mayor, did you vote against? Did you vote for that as well?
Look, I've got to tell you quite frankly, if the mood of the council is to sit here all night listening to questions, well, I'm okay with it. But you know, I think I've shown a propensity since I took this chair to be a bit of a stickler for the rules. And you know, I tell you what, our business here is to actually make decisions. That's what this forum is. It's a decision-making forum. We have ample opportunity to ask questions during the week at ABs and on a whole range of other issues. So, you know, I don't think this is a forum for questions, you know, 8, 10 continual questions. But if that's what council wants to do on this occasion, let's go ahead.
Thank you.
Sit here all night.
I'll let that one go. As per item 16 of the recommendation, it was discussed with WBA back in mid-2020, and even with this being in the middle of COVID shutdowns, that cash flow projections from the Basketball Association were provided, and there was an expectation back then that the loan would be repaid in August last year. What happened to this and why are we here now?
Director?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. That was the position of the city at the time. However, the nature of Councillor Spencer Tear's question is best addressed by the WBA, but from the city's perspective, the cash flow projections submitted ultimately didn't accord with the financial position of the WBA at the time. So there was a disparity between what they'd forecast and what they presented at that time in August 2020.
Councillor?
As per item 8B, the suggested loan is up to 10 years. I note from the letter received from WBA last night that no offer or indication to repay the loan early has been mentioned. In staff's conversation with WBA, has there ever been an indication that they would repay the loan prior to the 10 years, or are they standing firm on the 10 years?
Director?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My understanding is that the WBA are of the belief that a resolution afforded them a loan of up to 10 years and they're standing firm on the 10-year timeframe.
Councillor?
Thank you. I'll make this one my final one. Would it be reasonable to assume that in 10 years' time this asset is going to require further investment due to depreciation?
Director?
Yes, it would, Mr Mayor, and that would be the responsibility of the WBA through the nature of their lease arrangements with the city.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Councillor Barry?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I'm just a little mystified as to how this works out.
Which part of it?
Well, we've made a loan, and now they're asking for 250 odd thousand as a loan. Now we paid out the WATC loan. Is that correct?
You're asking through the chair?
Through, yeah.
In short, yes, we use the liquidity facility, which we have repaid to fund the cash flow for the WBA.
So the ratepayers paid for the debt of the basketball club, and now we're going to give them a loan to however many years.
I think we need a question there. So.
Well, is that correct? And Mr Mayor, look, while I'm standing, I mean, I understand what you're reading in the standing orders, but I mean, these people around here, this is a night of debate. It's not about what was asked and what wasn't asked in the AB. If we have questions that we need to be fully informed to make a decision, if you want to rule against that, then then fine. But I think democracy has got to be working here, and questions are to be fully informed. So we can make a decision.
I don't mind responding to that. Well, I guess the first thing is that we're reviewing our standing orders with great justification. I don't agree with you. I don't agree that tonight is a night to be standing here until midnight asking questions. I understand that previous councils might have done that and other councils may do that, but that's not our role here. This is a decision-making forum, and I'd make the point that I'm not sure what it was like previously, but we now have ABs only 1 week previously. And as I made the point to you last week, there is ample opportunity to ask questions previously to the directors, to the executive, and get those answers. If councillors choose not to do that, I don't understand why. Standing here in a public forum answering the questions is no different. I'm not sure why we need to have members of the public gallery. God bless the Aldridges for staying behind for so long, but we shouldn't have to. People shouldn't have to sit here for 4 hours listening to questions that could have been asked and answered previously. We should be here to make a decision. But anyhow, I take your point, and on this matter, I would also make the point that this is an important matter. It's been deferred once, and probably you're right in this instance. Maybe I should allow a little latitude, so I will. Just your microphone. I just was asking, you kind of made a statement, you didn't really ask a question. It was a bit of a, can I ask you to reframe your question? You said, so are you saying...
Look, I'll ask Mr. Bowe if he understood what I said first.
I think
Go ahead, Director Bowe.
Understand the question, Mr. Mayor, in that, yes, the ratepayers of the City of Canning funded the repayment of the WATC liquidity facility, and yes, the loan that is proposed to be afforded the WBA has been and will be funded by the ratepayers, and on repayment of that loan, the ratepayers of the City of Canning will be refunded by the WBA.
Councillor Barry.
Okay, so and just another question. I looked up the last three budgets. Now, in 2018-19, there was the $2.2 million, which was the grant to them, correct? In 2019-20, 244, number 244, Wilton Basketball Association was said to be 2.5 million. I questioned that of the then director, Gary, already gone, 2.5. Now last year, WBA 244 was registering 4.1 million. Is there a reason why?
Director, are you able to answer that?
I'm not able to answer the specifics in relation to that, Mr. Mayor, other than to say that the council resolved to support through using its liquidity facility with the Treasury Corporation a loan of up to $3 million to address cash flow issues identified the WBA during the construction of the Willetton Stadium, and that was all endorsed as part of the budget. And as we stand at the moment, there's a current outstanding amount of $253,000 owed by the WBA back to the City of Canning.
Okay.
And I'd make the point again, Councillor Barry, only because you raised it earlier. It's such a shame that you can't have that answer tonight, because if we'd asked that question during the week, you would have been fully informed tonight and been able to make a decision based on that. And now you're none the wiser. We really
yes, well, look, I've asked the question, and things do change within a week, like a week's a long time in footy. It's even longer sometimes here. And like I said, we ask
7 days.
We ask questions so that we're fully informed. So that's it. The other thing I would ask is that on 7, it does say notionally, a loan notionally. Now, given the meaning of notionally as speculative or theoretical, it's not something that was written. And given the fact that now we've already paid off the loan for them, and I don't know whether they're wanting us or we're wanting them. Which one is it, please?
Director Bowe, are you able to answer that?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. The key terms and the terms consistent with the advice of the city solicitors when this matter was first considered back in October 2018 referenced the term of up to 10 years. Since that time, we've been working with the WBA with a term of up to 10 years on the table, in which we would refer the matter of the outstanding monies back to council for endorsement at that particular time. The reason why the time frame was never established back in 2018 or 2019 in April, when council resolved to fund the funded the 3 million was that we didn't know what the outstanding amount was. And so for all intents and purposes, the outstanding amount could have been $500,000. It could have been $1 million. The administration would never have entered into any agreement with the WBA on the term and the nature of the loan to that extent without a council resolution. So whilst we've been working with the WBA to that time frame of 10 years, nothing has been promised, and here we are with the recommendation to enter into the loan over that term.
Councillor Barry? Your microphone, please, Councillor. Your microphone, Councillor.
I'm speaking.
No one knows you're speaking because you don't have your microphone on.
I'll speak against it because, like I said, in the 1920 budget, we borrowed 2.5, not 3. I asked it of the then director. I didn't get an answer, only to the extent that no, we didn't borrow 3 million. We borrowed 2.5. So I'm at a loss on this one. I didn't agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, just talking about the, don't forget we're only talking about the amendment at the moment. So really, at the moment, the debate should be confined to the term of the loan.
I've got
some questions, that's fine, but we
I've got
should
a question and a little bit of a comment regarding, if I may, the little bit of debate going in the council regarding the questions, and you've had, you know,
I do as the chair, so I have authority to do that as the chair, to actually speak from the chair, so you don't. If you've got a question, you can ask it. If you've got a question in relation to this item, I'd appreciate it if you ask it as well. But Jesse, you just have to stick to the...
We can do that. We can do that. WA letter to COC, final 3rd July 2021 PDF. The last paragraph, and I'll just read it, and the question will be, nonetheless, it is important we show our strength of character and ensure that on the ongoing operating model between WA and the COC remains collaborative and fair. To this point, we will not be making a deputation at the June full council meeting, and we retain the expectation that the original and agreed terms, of which are 2 years into, will be formally approved and duly executed. Whoever would like to answer this, Director or Mayor, is this, you know, my understanding is this is almost sort of a demand. I'm having a hard time with it. This doesn't sit well with me.
Just your question, though?
Is this a demand? I mean, I'm reading this last paragraph.
We can't answer for the Willetton Basketball Association, so I think that's an entirely subjective question. We can't tell you it's a demand.
Okay. Well, can I rephrase it?
Or?
Can I rephrase it?
Yeah, of course.
The director's obviously, this is his area. He has a lot more expertise in this area than I do. What was his takeaway from that letter, and most notably the last paragraph?
I'm not certain the director would want to give an opinion on that, but I'll certainly ask him if he would like to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I decline to give my opinion on that. Thanks.
Yeah, can't give a personal opinion. Anyone else have a question? Councillor Ponaturai, or to speak for or against the amendment?
Just quick clarification, there's too much going on. So we are now speaking the amendments for 5 years?
Yeah, that's it. So at the moment, we're not speaking about 1 or 2. We're just talking about the amendment, which is 3. And really, the only thing that has changed in 3 is just the term of the loan. I think Councillor Spencer-Teo, without putting words in her mouth, started off talking about 1 year. It was then changed, well, it was suggested by Councillor Kunza, I think perhaps 3 years. Councillor Holland then came back to 5 years, which seemed to have been accepted without any objection from the mover or the seconder, and clearly the WBA expect council to abide by its 10-year agreement, whatever that is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the clarification. Yes, I'll be speaking, I'll be supporting the 5-year amendment, 5-year loan paying back, because that could be fair compromise. Just to give a little quick picture to the snapshot to all my colleagues here. My son also grew up in Willetton and went to Willetton Basketball Stadium, not just to play basketball, but he also used to attend the school holiday program. So he went to All Saints, and the Willetton Basketball School program was very good. And he grew up as a referee and to supervisor. Of course, he doesn't work anymore. Just what I was trying to reiterate to all of you is the Willetton Basketball Stadium is totally different association or a much bigger association compared to most of the clubs, sports clubs within the city of Canning. So this giving the loan facility from the WTC in the last few years, assisting them to build this association stadium, the membership grew from 3,000 to 4,500. That means that many youth are not just on the road or taking drugs, alcohol after school, or what are they doing in the weekends. But we are actually saving youth doing good things. Playing sports is very important. Quite a few of us have got kids here. We understand why sports is important. And they also get to mingle with people and they learn other skills as well. So the Willetton Basketball Stadium actually grown by us giving an opportunity, financially funding that. And unfortunately, I cannot compare this to some of the other smaller clubs. A netball club could be 100 or 200, or another volleyball club. But saying that again, also basketball stadium, not only just playing basketball, but the basketball courts are used by number of various association and the other sports club like badminton, Willross Badminton, or even All Saints just use the badminton basketball, and Rosman Senior High School using for basketball, badminton, netball, volleyball. And also now the function center also, we were able to hire it for events. So it's just become the state of the art building within city of Canning. Yes, it is in Willetton, but it is within our city of Canning. Also, out of the 4,500 members, not all of them may not come, 50% may come from outside. I think I spoke this even 3 or 4 years ago. I said, but more people coming into our city, we are attracting people to come and live and do business. So that is how we grow. And when you want to think about a marketing and business-wise, as much as we want to give the social responsibility of these services. So all of you, please think this basketball stadium is a very important place, and we have spent heaps of amount. I don't want to say how many millions of dollars. I'm sure Director Bob might be able to say to the point how many $1 million we have spent on the BPO Burunda ancillary work. And so this is very important for us to be helping them. We don't need to go into the micromanaging their financial statement. This is something we agreed about 3 years ago. I can see in the minutes we all were quite happy to endorse this, and we have been to see from the sod turning to the building getting built and open, all of that. And of course, we have seen the clubs grown now. So think about all our children, and the future children are in a safe place playing sports, and not just only basketball. There are a number of other sports they're playing, and also they have a number of competition, which is very important. And I support most of the sports clubs around Canning. So as much as that, yes, we can afford to do this. So let's do that. And also, I want to reinforce this. Only at the last meeting, Director Steve Kane mentioned, and with giving even this $253,000 loan, we are still within the budget of the 300 plus whatever he has planned. So please think carefully. It's not about something is in Willetton or somebody brought this item or who spoke and what happened, but the matter is brought to us and by officer recommendation to us to make a decision. I think it's a very good compromising coming to 5-year term. And so let's not micromanage some other people's business, but let's look at the positively, how many clubs and people are there serving in this community. And I have been to the basketball stadium, not only just when the basketball games, I've been to a number of other Zumba classes, yoga classes too. So on that note, I will highly encourage all of you to support this 5-year, that we should support for 5-year loan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against the matter? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I can't support this. It doesn't sit well with me. The whole thing. I've thought about this. Sorry,
at the moment, just to hold you up, sorry, we're only speaking about the 5-year term, not the whole. You're either speaking against having offering them a 5-year term, or you're speaking. Yeah.
I get you. I'll save my ammo for the subsequent thing. It's great. I don't support the amendment to the terms of 5 years at the moment, so I'll be speaking against the amendment.
Anyone else? Look, I'll speak against the amendment, only on the basis that, look, I'm a believer in doing what you say, and whether it's perceived or not, and whether or not they've got money in the bank, and no matter who they are, they're 2 years into a perceived agreement with the city, and they're starting to pay this item down. There's only 8 years left, in which I'm sure they'll pay it down. We're trying to give them 5 years. I think we're penny pinching. I know we've provided significant funds to this organisation, but as Councillor Ponaturo rightly said, this is an extraordinary big organisation which provides an incredible benefit to this community. I don't agree on the 5-year loan. I don't think it's up to council to sit here as informed as we are to decide whether we offer them 1, 2, 5, 3, 7 years. We're really just clutching at straws. I think we should be not trying to manage the finances of the Willetton Basketball Association, no matter how buoyant we think they may be. We are still at this moment within the grip of COVID, both nationally and internationally, and who knows what will happen in the near future. We might be ruining the day that we actually force this large organisation to step back from an agreement that they feel that we have already made with them. So I think really 5 years, or to allow them the additional few years to pay this out, I have no issue, quite frankly. I just think we should just move on very quickly with this. Revert back to the original terms, which are consistent with the key terms outlined in the officer's recommendation, the officer's report, and just get on with it. We're wasting far too much time on this, in my view. I appreciate the sentiment of Councillor Ponaturo that this is a good a compromise. I think it is, but my personal view, and I think we're here to provide our personal views, is that we really should just move forward with the terms that were previously agreed, perceived or not, as I said, and just allow this very large organisation, which provides enormous benefit across the city and also provides enormous exposure for the City of Canning in the State Basketball League. We're really lucky and fortunate to have them in our city, and I'd like to keep supporting them. We're talking about, in relative terms, a very small amount of money over 10 years, now 8 years, and I think we should just move on. That's just my view. Councillor Barry.
Yes, so basically, if this 5-year one is lost and we go back to the substantive motion, can Councillor Spencer Teo move the 1 year again?
We can have as many amendments on the night as we want.
So we'll need to know. Thank you.
Yeah, we will revert. So just to answer your question in full, though, we'll revert back to the substantive motion, which reverts back to where we were. If this amendment is lost, we'll go back to on terms that are consistent with the key terms outlined in the report, which was the original substantive motion at item 3, and then it is open to councillors to amend that again if they so wish. So at the moment, we're just dealing with just what we have in front of us, which is the 5 years. Councillor Spencer Teo, you had a question? Not sure if you can. Anyone, you want a question, Councillor Ponaturo?
So we're going to vote on the 5-year amendment, and if that gets lost, we go back to the 10-year one.
We go back to the original agreement.
Original 10-year. You just mentioned 8 year, just near.
Well, they're 2 years into the. So at the moment, they've elected. We started talking to them about this 2 years. Director Bowe, I might get you to, rather than me trying to clumsily explain it. Can you go over that ground again, please?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Mayor. The position that the administration and the WBA have been working towards is for the term of the loan to be 10 years. So whilst they indicate in their correspondence that they're 2 years into it, my response to Councillor Spencer Teo's question earlier, my view is that if the resolution is passed in accordance with the officer's recommendation, that the loan term would be 10 years, not 8 years.
Thank you. So clear? Councillor Barry had a question?
So by the same token, if this is lost and the next is lost, a foreshadowed motion could be that the city disapproves of the establishment of a Willetton Basketball Association loan.
You could certainly do that. Yep. Right, any other councillor want to speak either for or against it before we put the amendment to the vote? We're just talking about the amendment at the moment, the 5-year term, that's it. Councillor Spencer Teo.
Do I not get to close on the amendment?
You do. I'm about to do that if no one else wants to.
Oh, sorry, you just said vote.
Question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. No other questions. Councillor Spencer, did you want to just rebut? And you're only rebutting on what has been said in relation to the 5-year loan term.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, you said, and Councillor Ponaturo said, that we shouldn't be micromanaging their finances. However, it seems to be okay that we are their bank. So, sorry, that I don't agree with that. Councillor Barry wasn't going to support this anyway, so I thank you for your consistency, Councillor Barry. Now, Councillor Ponaturo mentioned that this application was nothing like that of other sporting groups, and in last meeting the reference to the tennis club was made. She even said it was like comparing apples to jackfruit. The number of members seems to be a focal point here. The tennis club, yep, they've got 245 members. There are over 4,000 players registered with Basketball WA who play at the Willetton Stadium, but very few of them are actually members of the basketball stadium. Their model works on a pay-to-play, not a membership. So in saying that, if we added all the casual pay-to-play users of the tennis club and all the students from Clontarf and neighbouring schools that they accommodate, they would easily get up into the thousands of players who use the facilities. You don't have to be a member of the tennis club to play tennis there, just like you don't have to be a member of the basketball stadium to play there. Irrespective of how many constituents a club has, how is a club, any club, supposed to prosper and grow without the support of this council? Let's look at the men's shed. We supported this back in 2019 with no repayment when the club had less than 25 members. Due to our financial support, the club now boasts membership numbers growing by the week. So is this really based on numbers? If so, these arguments are not making any sense to me. It was also mentioned that the Willetton Basketball Association is well established. Well, the tennis club started in '74. Basketball, 73, just a few months before. So there goes that argument. I keep hearing that the Basketball Association's well serviced. It doesn't service just one sport. Well, sorry to tell you, unless you're a local school or have a program that runs during school hours, you cannot book a court at the stadium. Forget weekends, school holidays. Look, don't get me wrong. It's great that this club is doing so well and I applaud them for their success, but the stadium is once again at capacity and basketball is their primary focus. Their financials support this, with less than 1% of their income being derived from sports other than basketball. So let's compare apples, shall we? This loan is for twice the amount, 10 times the repayment term, no guarantee of repayment. The tennis club runs 100% on volunteers. Basketball has almost $1 million in wages. Basketball club's annual income, $2.5 million. Tennis club, 140 grand. Tennis club, no money. Willetton Basketball, got the money in advance. Councillor Holland and Sabiri expressed concern with this amendment as it hadn't been negotiated with the Basketball Association. When do we allow community groups to dictate on what terms they repay our ratepayers' money? We're in the position of making this decision, are we not? Back in 2018, the terms of the loan were not resolved by this council. Even in the letter received last night from the basketball stadium, it states, and I quote, the facility remained in place for 12 months so it could be determined whether or not it needed a loan for the balance. That's why we're here today, to confirm the amount and the term and to determine if the loan is needed. Our obligation is to our ratepayers, not the CEO or a board of a sporting club who operates from one of our assets. It was asked, what if the Willetton Basketball Association don't like 5 years? Do you go back to a bank that you're asking for a loan from and say, don't like that? No, you say thank you and you take what you can get and you look elsewhere if it's needed. Willetton Basketball Association has an obligation to provide us with a reason why they need or want our ratepayers' money. We need to decide if our ratepayers' money is best spent here or not. After receiving this letter last night, I really feel like this decision has been taken out of my hands. And like Deputy Mayor Jacobs said, it almost felt like a letter of demand. I certainly don't like being questioned for doing my job and asking for our ratepayers' interest for further information. A real bank would be asking a hell of a lot more. Now, people are watching and listening now more than ever. We want to talk about transparency and accountability. Well, let's also look at consistency. So please think really carefully about this one. This amendment is incredibly generous and it's very fair. Willetton Basketball Association may prefer 10 years, but ask yourself, do you really feel the need has been justified? And remember, this money is not coming from Treasury. It's coming from our ratepayers and it affects our deficit position. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spencer. Councillors, we're going to now put the amendment to the vote. So the amendment on screen, that's what you're voting on, not the whole 1, 2 and 3, but simply item 3 of the motion. Councillors, let's put the matter to the vote.
Amendment to EN-008-21 has been lost. 3 in favour and 6 against. Those councillors voting against, firstly the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillors Bain, Barry, Ponathurai and Porter.
Councillors, we move back to the substantive motion, which is, I'll get governance to catch up and put that on screen.
I think that's a little too ambitious. A chance for reconsideration.
We got it up there on the screen? Is that it? Councillors, we now have the substantive motion back on the screen. Councillor Barry, you've mentioned earlier foreshadowing a motion. That would be a foreshadowed alternative motion in the event that this matter is lost. Did you still want to proceed with that or not?
It was actually only a question.
Oh, okay. Yep, no problems at all. Thank you. Councillors, the matter is on the screen at the moment. We have a mover for this matter. The substantive motion was Councillor Spencer Teo. The seconder for that was Councillor Ponathurai. Councillor Spencer Teo spoke on the matter and then introduced an amendment. I don't believe that Councillor Ponathurai has actually spoken on the substantive motion, though you just spoke for 5 minutes on the substantive motion. So. And I know that you had all that prepared, so are you happy to accept that you've already spoken on it? I'm not sure if you want to say any more. You've already spoken on it. Can I speak? You can if you like, but Councillor Ponathurai, please don't read all that out again. You're not. It's on the public record. I mean, you know, it's recorded on the audio, so everybody will hear what you've just said. You've already said it. Unless you've got something you'd like to add to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we have listened to a number of people speaking, and I've very clearly identified what is the difference of Willetton Basketball Stadium within the city of Canning, even more than comparing to our own leisureplace. And please remember, I would like to see, for example, the tennis club, whether do they have other sports playing there or just doing the other activities and outer school care program, because I have experienced myself. That's the most important thing, and which is all the facilities. So if you have not visited, I'm sure we can organize a visit and a tour of the basketball stadium through our director board and ourselves, and must do that. That's something not ever to be missed. And what I'm trying to say is, yes, we've heard about when we are giving or facilitating a loan, we do say some terms and conditions. But remember, they are our customers. All our job is, we want to service, our service is above all. So we have to also sometimes have to listen to the customers. So I'm not going to talk about the basketball stadiums, all the facilities and what they do. What I'm trying to say, reiterate again, remember, we have to listen to the customers and what do they want. Sometimes it can come across the letters or the tone of the letter, depends on the time somebody may have written or may not have actually built the right relationship. And we all know that very well. That's why we are community leaders. We are elected by the people to serve for the people. And I would like to say something in my own experiences about number of boards I sit and read and talk to people listening and asking questions. It's totally different. So please remember this. We don't have to worry about the tone of the letter or demanding of the letter. We're just talking about what do we need to do and what is our role here. This is something far more than any other associations and sporting clubs. And I would like to reinforce that. And I think Director Bowe and his team, we respect the officers and the directors, so we should probably respect in that form that they have done the job professionally. And please support the 10-year loan, and they might even pay earlier. That we could negotiate later. But let's go on with the 10-year loan now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer-T, you have a question?
I'd like to move the foreshadowed motion should this get defeated. I do not want to walk away from here with Willetton Basketball Association getting nothing. Like I said, I thought 5 years was reasonable, so I'd like to move to 3 years.
That's not, so that would have the same intent, I would think. That's not a foreshadowed motion. Actually,
if the 10 years is lost.
A foreshadowed motion is an alternative motion. Basically has a completely different intent. So in that last matter we had with the CCTV, my motion was pretty much completely opposite to that. So what it's saying is you can move an amendment to make it 3 years, but 5 years was just not supported.
Like I said, I wouldn't be comfortable leaving here knowing that I didn't fight for something for them.
For who?
For the Willetton Basketball Association. So if the 10 years gets lost, what happens then? They get nothing?
Well, that's exactly it.
Yes. So just a question then, Mr. Mayor, if that happens, if the motion is lost, where does this sit?
If the motion's lost, or Director Bowe, well, let's hope that doesn't happen. I'm not trying to preempt anything, but I'll ask Director Bowe. Director Bowe, what would be the outcome, considering this organisation is currently paying down on the loan? What would be the requirement if Council doesn't support the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding would be that the Willetton Basketball Association would have an outstanding debt with the city, and the city would need to enter into negotiations about repaying or recovering that debt. But I might ask Director Kane to elaborate on that if I'm not on the mark there.
Director Kane.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Director Bowe's answer is quite correct. There'd be a debt. We'd have to then negotiate with them on repayment of the debt.
Would I be right to say, only because I chair the Audit and Risk Committee, that if the matter came to Council $250,000 and they, rightly made a business case that their operations would be affected by paying this early or being forced to pay it up front, that we could end up with terms that are similar to or can you how would we deal with that? I mean, the terms the city might approach it might be similar to this, or are we going to require them to pay this down in a very short period, or is that a question you can't answer?
Look, this is an unusual circumstance for us. If Council didn't support this, they would effectively owe us 8 years of the outstanding balance, say $200,000, and we'd just give them a letter of demand for the $200,000. That's the only means by which we can deal with it. We can't enter special trading terms, just like we can't with ratepayers or any other debtor of the city.
Thank you. You have another question, Councillor Barry? No? I'll speak. Yeah, look, I'll tell you what. I'll take the lead on it then, and I'll come back to you in just a moment, Councillor Ponaturai. Look, I'll take the lead on this and speak in favour of the recommendation, and I very much hope the councillors around the room follow my lead and also support this, because the failure to do so has grim outcome for this magnificent club. And I say magnificent because this is an outstanding club and has been for a long time. And that's why, as a very young council, we all sat around, Deputy Mayor and the rest of us were here in 2015 that I left, and we decided as a council to support this club, millions of dollars, because we believed in it and we believed in the community benefit that it delivers. And there are not just people from the City of Canning that are members there, I get that, but there are also people that live in Canning Vale, in Shelley, Rossmoyne, in Parkwood, Queen's Park. There are clubs from everywhere that actually play inside that centre. So I again make the point, this is not an extraordinarily large amount of money. I feel that we are carrying through with the promise that we made, rightly or wrongly, and whether you now accept that or not, that seems to be unequivocally the case from reading the officer's report. And I take the point strongly made by Councillor Spencer Teo that in all good conscience she can't and I can't entertain the thought that we as a council tonight defeat this motion as it is, and this club ends up learning tomorrow, and so does all the media, that this council failed to support the largest community club in its municipality. I would just be astounded, and I know that that would not be the intent of this council. So we had agreed previously, the key terms outlined in the report had been that there had been a 10-year agreement. They are already 2 years into that. So we are talking at the moment about, in effect, an 8-year agreement. And I have absolutely no doubt that club, through the governance it has had over many years with Phil Nixon in charge, he's no longer there. I see Cam Tovey wrote the letter and I think he's the new president. But irrespective of that, I fully am confident that if they are able to pay down the loan a little earlier, they will. Because nobody wants to have a debt sitting on their books. So I would think if they're able to do that, they will. But even if they don't, we were talking earlier about a 5-year term and everyone seemed fairly comfortable with that, then wasn't supported, to now be arguing about a term which essentially is going to be, in effect, slightly less than 8 years. I think, councillors, we just need to move on with this, show our support tonight for this club. We've laboured over this decision long enough, and just get on with it, please. So I'm speaking in support of it. Our fallback position is to support it. Let's do that now. Collegiately, collectively, as a council, let's move on and unanimously support this motion, which needs an absolute majority. And there are only 9 of us in the room. So we need 6 people to support this or it fails. So this is not a night to stand on integrity. Oh, sorry, that's completely wrong. Let me take that back. You know how we don't, you know how we're not redacting the tape? Can we please redact the tape? Good Lord. This is probably not a night to try and make some sort of stand on, reasons why we shouldn't be supporting this club. I think we're now in a position that really we must. And that's what we need to do in good faith as a governing body of this community. We need to do that. All of us need to do that. So I hope that we will. Just before I go to you, Deputy Mayor, and I will, Councillor Ponaturai, are you now okay? Did you want to ask a question or not?
I want to comment on your leadership on taking that charge. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor, you're about to congratulate me as well? No? Go ahead.
My body language give it away.
Not sure.
Question, just before I make my statement. We've given the WBC $2.2 million previously and a $3 million loan facility. Is there anything else? Is that my understanding correct?
I think that's covered in the report. And
just for clarity, it's not the WBC, it's the WBA. The Willetton Bowling Club is another organisation at the Willetton Sports Precinct that the city has both grant funded and loan funded redevelopment of their facilities, and the term of that loan was 10 years. We have funded through our direct grant $2.2 million to the WBA. We have not funded a $3 million loan. We have used our $3 million liquidity facility to assist them during the construction of the Willetton Stadium, for which now they owe us $253,000.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to the matter?
I'm going to speak against. This has been a difficult decision for me. I think I need to be consistent. I think at the time it's a very difficult financial position for the city. Last time I checked with the City of Canning, we're not the Bank of Canning. This is ratepayer funds. Councillor Spencer Tier made some powerful arguments, 10 times repay time, double the amount. I need to be consistent. The Corinthian Tennis Club came here, they made a presentation. I knocked it back with arguments that we didn't have the funds at the moment, we're in a difficult financial position. The thing that gets me about this club is they write to us, and the letter really for me was just attitude. I think attitude's everything, and my understanding is from reading this letter, and I've read it more than once, it seems to be almost a letter of demand, and it doesn't sit well with me, councillors. We don't have the funds at the moment. I need to be consistent. I think the WBA, I meant WBA the first time, I don't know why I said WBC. WBA we've been very supportive of them, and millions of dollars of council ratepayers' money has been given to them previously. But the decision for me is a no on this. That doesn't preclude something else in the future, but what I see now and the information that I've got now, this decision doesn't sit well with me. I'll be voting no against it because I want to be consistent. We're not the Bank of Canning. Ratepayers' funds are at stake here. And the biggest thing for me was just the attitude. They're not here, they're not talking. It's sort of a letter of demand, and maybe that's my personality. I don't respond well to, demands. I sort of up the ante. So that's me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anyone else? Councillor Barry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I speak against it as well. I said earlier I wasn't a fan of this in the first instance, and probably, as you might guess, I'm still not. The fact of the matter is that we gave a $2.2 million towards us, and this has been going on for many, many years, and then we gave them another loan, supposedly up to $3 million. We actually changed our city centre lending facility to something else which helped them accommodate that. The fact of the matter is that the second loan that we gave actually saved them, in my estimation, and I think it was written in there, from insolvency. Now, I do recall at some stage there was some talk in the very early stages about the city was saying, well, what about your scoreboard? And they said, no, look, we can get away with that. So I don't know really where this whole loan sort of thing came in, apart from notionally people sitting around the table saying, yeah, maybe we'll see on the day. I mean, I look at it once again, I raised the point last week that this organisation, okay, they may be successful. I don't know whether we actually owe them a living. The fact of the matter is that they get a $51,000 rebate on their lease. I've got WA 8 Ball Club in a dilapidated building that the only money that's spent on it basically is by the government and a bit by the city, and they're paying $80,000 a year. Now, I just don't know where the equity is in all this. We sit around here saying 25,000 for this, and everybody screams like a banshee. And here we are, over $250,000, and we're being asked to just, yeah, that's fine. Look, yeah, notionally we did that so many years ago. So essentially, I'll speak against it. Thank you.
Just for the record, I don't recall anyone screaming like a banshee.
Maybe it was just me under my breath, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I accept your apology. Anyone else, councillors? Councillor Sabiri, yes, please.
I would have liked to have the 5-year pass, but 10 years. I support the officer recommendation. I think having the club there, I think actually going to the club and presenting a letter to return the pay us back immediately is a bit ridiculous. So, and the other factor is that having the basketball club there, the basketball association, whatever is the right terminology, is a good thing for the city. It's I don't think we should just, I guess, look at it from a Willetton point of view, and it really affects the outcomes of the neighborhood, outcomes that we expect as a city. The neighborhood that you live in, that people live in addition to their incomes and options that are there, are influence, I guess, whether they're going to be active. So having the basketball club gives people an option to be active, and I think that's really valuable. Having neighborhoods that are more have more resources and resources that are well maintained allow for better physical activity. So I think and that also, like Councillor Punathroy mentioned before, stops criminal activity in some ways, encourages people to participate in sport, better, healthier life. So I support it. $200,000, it's for the city. I don't think it's that much. Asking for a 10-year loan I think it's okay. I would have rather middle ground where everyone would have been a bit more happy, but I'm happy to support the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak on the matter before? I'll go to Councillor Bain first, then I'll go to Councillor Kunza, and then I'll ask Councillor Spencer-Teo to close. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be voting in support of the officer's recommendation. I don't want to see this council issuing one of its clubs a letter of demand to pay back a debt. They will pay it back. They have the means to do so and are committed to doing so. It's a great club which many residents attend, and we should continue to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Bain. Councillor Kunza.
Mr. Mayor, yep, I very much speak in favour of the officer recommendation. I support formalising the loan and help that's really helped the Willetton Basketball Association realise its expansion dream. Look, the association has done a phenomenal job, and the final product is just marvellous. I do hope that the debate tonight and whatever ultimate decisions made doesn't really tarnish the relationship we have, because the City of Canning has been a tremendous partner, and the entire community should be proud of what it's done to help the WBA realise its expansion dream. When Councillor Holland, who's not here tonight, and I brought forward the expansion project in 2016 through a NOM, the WBA had no formal support. They couldn't, it was the city's $2.2 million grant as the landowner that paved the way for the federal support through Ben Morton, and then the state government grant through the CSRFF. It wouldn't have happened if the City of Canning didn't back the club, which for many years had a very high mountain to climb. But we've not only provided the $2.2 million grant, we stepped in to help with their liquidity issues, given the project was largely funded with grant funding. But I actually encouraged Phil Nixon and the WBA at the time to make sure they did everything at once. Why leave things not accomplished? I mean, it took so much to get to where they got to. Why leave things not finished? So the fact that they have an outstanding debt was just basically the WBA making sure they ticked all the boxes at once instead of trying to pursue little tiny projects later on. I mean, but this, in terms of supporting the WBA through a loan like this is what we as a local government should be doing. As I consistently said, we should be helping those who help themselves. And despite what some may say, we have a clear history of loaning clubs funds, whether it be the Willetton Bowling Club in 2018. I mean, I learnt recently that we provided the Linwood Ferndale Scout Group a loan in the 1980s to help them build their facility. I mean, it's not just about giving grants to local clubs and building the facilities for them, but if we can actually loan them funds that they build the facility themselves, why is that a bad thing? I mean, it's been mentioned before that 2 months ago, several councillors in here tonight said that we're not the Bank of Canning, and argued against loaning funds to the Corinthian Park Tennis Club and again tonight, but I couldn't disagree more. I mean, we are assisting clubs to see their realisation, to see their dreams come to fruition. What are we here for? Are we not here for the community? I mean, it was mentioned before that the WBA are our customers. I mean, we're their servants. I mean, what's what we're here for with local government, is to help the community. The ratepayers pay their rates. It's supporting community clubs. They're made up of our local residents. And several councillors have spoken against this, but I really encourage them to rethink and support this motion, because, as was mentioned, we need 6 out of 9 votes for it to go through. And I just can't fathom, after all this work, and the WBA, I mean, whether it was informal agreement or not, council gave direction when we spoke about the liquidity fund that there would be potentially an outstanding amount that would need to be formalised at some point. I mean, as Director Bowe said, might be $1 million, might be 500. It's hard to actually know what we'd do at that stage. But to say to them now, pay you $250,000 after what we've had is such a good relationship with them and developed such a good project together, I think that would be a terrible ending to this expansion project. Now, it's obviously, I mean, one of the negative consequences would be the way the Corinthian Park Tennis Club would perceive that. And I've got to say, they were basically told to consider using their houses as collateral to get the funding. But I think that's what we should be doing. We should be supporting clubs to do these projects. And I really hope that councillors can support it. I mean, as I said, don't forget, we are here for the community. Was the attitude in the letter bad? It might be, but let's not allow, I guess, whether we're offended or not, get in the way of supporting a club that basically facilitates 4,500 basketball participants, that services the community that we live in, that we are servants to. And I would say, I mean, I don't mean this in a direct way, but just let's, I mean, the tone of the letter, not the best, but let's not that be the reason why we vote against this project. I really encourage council to support it. Whether we like it or not, they've been going under the pretense that they would potentially have 10 years. I mean, I supported reducing it to 5 because that would free up money to potentially put into other clubs at some point. But the reality is that they have been, I guess, proceeding down the line that they would have time to pay this off. And they have the money. I mean, it's not like we're going to go get what we need to, whilst it's an accounting thing, it's not like we're, I thought that goes orange first. Anyway, I'll finish with saying, could you please support it? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo, I'll ask you to close debate.
This is a really tough one. I don't want to see them walking away with nothing. I 100% agree with what Deputy Mayor Jacobs said and Councillor Barry, but I also agree what everybody else said. So I have to sit back from this one and forget that this is a community organisation, forget that, this is our ratepayers' money, which is really hard to do. But I've already been accused of bias. Are we going to get accused of preferential treatment by supporting this? I'm going to have to switch, and 10 years is just too long for me. So it looks like it's going to go through anyway, which is fine, but in the interest of setting a precedence, I can't support this. I know tomorrow I'm going to have phone calls from community groups wanting a $3 million facility or wanting a $250,000 facility over 10 years, and I wouldn't support them. So I just can't see why I could support this. I'm not going to sleep tonight because of this. But 10 years is too long. We're not a bank. I'm sorry.
Let's put the matter to the vote.
Substantive motion EN-00821 has been, it's been carried, 5 in favour, 4 against. However, it's not been carried by an absolute majority. Those councillors voting against are Councillor Barry, Deputy Jacobs, Councillors Porter and Spencer Teo.
No, it's not carried. Yes. Sorry? I beg your pardon? I made it very clear at the top of the item, we needed an absolute majority for that item to carry, which was 6 out of 9. No, there's no foreshadowed motion. There was not a foreshadowed motion put. I asked Councillor Barry if he wished to do it, and he said no, I was just asking a question. So the matter is lost. We move on. Deputy Mayor, can I ask you to take the chair, please, for a couple of minutes? As Councillor Sweeney enters the room, thank you.
You just wanted to join the meeting, or just want me to...
No, you come up here. Yep.
Thank you, councillors. The next one on the agenda while the Mayor takes a comfort break is EN 00921, Sustainable Environment Advisory Group Meeting, unconfirmed meeting minutes, April 2021. The recommendation is on page 175 of the agenda, is on the screen now. Do I have a mover, councillors? Councillor Barry? And seconder, Councillor Bain. Councillor Barry.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Oh, not yet, just deputy at the moment. Thanks.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Councillor Bain.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
We'll put the matter to a vote. And I was just joking there, councillors. Thank you.
Motion EN-00921 has been carried, 9 in favour, noting that the Mayor was absent for the vote.
And we'll just make sure that that's Deputy Mayor Jacobs and Councillor Hall's out of the room because I've voted on his machine. Thanks. Okay, next one, EN-01121, Waste Disposal Contract. The recommendation, councillors, is on page 184 of the agenda, is on the screen now. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barry. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Porter. Sorry, Councillor Kunz, you're about half a second off. Councillor Barry.
No, nothing further to add. I thought I asked all the pertinent questions at the AB. Thank you.
It's good to hear, thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Porter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I speak in support of this item and the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor at the moment, not Mayor. Thank you anyway. Thank you anyway. Okay, so is there anybody wanting else to speak on this item? Put it to the vote. Thank you. And the Mayor's coming back, so he'll take the next one. Thank you.
Motion EN-011 has been carried, 9 in favour, noting that the Mayor was absent for the vote.
Thank you, councillors, and also thanks to the Deputy Mayor. We move to 7.5, Director Sarah McQuaid as a responsible officer, the Director of Canning Community, CC 002 of 21. The title of the report being Endorsement of Safe Canning Strategy. The recommendation is on page 190 and is on the screen. Can I have a mover for that matter, please? Councillor Barry, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Ponaturai, thank you. Councillor Barry.
Nothing further to add, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ponaturai, anything to add?
Nothing to add, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, let's put the matter to the vote.
Motion CO-00221 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. We've already dealt with CO 003 of 21, which is a response to the petition. We now move to motions of which previous notice has been given. First of which being notice of motion 003 of 21, youth engagement with Canning's secondary students. The recommendation is on the screen and also appears on page 206 of tonight's agenda. The matter is being moved by Councillor Spencer Teo. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kunza. Thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this motion will give the opportunity for the city to re-engage with schools other than Linwood, Willerton, Senior High School, Canning College and Sevenoaks. Right now, these are the only 4 schools who we currently have any form of relationship. That's 4 out of 34, so 1%. Is that enough? I don't believe so, and certainly not when I engage with several schools and 3 of their teachers of late have asked me how they can get their students involved in local government issues or matters that affect students. The city used to have relationships with way more schools than this, but due to staff turnover, probably on both sides, these relationships have been lost or simply not maintained. Director McQuaid has confirmed that we no longer have any programs that involve House or political students, and the programs currently offered are geared more towards vet or work experience, as Councillor Holland mentioned last week. This motion will simply allow staff to re-engage with teachers or heads of department and provide an avenue where teachers can use local issues that affect our youth to complement their curriculum. It will, if anything, complement it, as it provides real-life experiences that the youth of Canning can actively participate in, whilst allowing teachers to meet their teaching requirements and the delivery of the curriculum. Establishing those connections and rebuilding these relationships without exclusion will mean that our youth can be consulted on issues relevant to them. I'm going to give you an example, and I choose this because it's current, and that's the Shelley Beach Master Plan detailed design process. Don't you think that the local students have a right to be consulted, or at least have an opportunity to have a say in the design of this space? After all, they're going to be the ones using it long after we've moved on. This NOM will simply formalise this type of arrangement. It will be a fantastic opportunity for our staff to engage with schools to seek their input. If they don't want to be involved, which I'd be incredibly surprised if they didn't, then so be it. But how will we ever know if we don't engage? This comes at no cost whatsoever. It fills the gap between council and our youth, and it assists in the delivery of education, and it opens the doors to all schools, not just the 4 I've mentioned. Staff will be the ones doing all the work, and they support this motion. It can be incorporated into our existing staffing models. Why wouldn't council support this? I, for one, really want to hear from the kids of Canning to better understand what our future ratepayers want in their city. They may not be able to vote, but they have a right to be heard. They have a right to be involved. So let's open that door and welcome their opinions and their involvement in these decisions, and let's support this NOM and make this happen for all the kids in Canning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kunza.
Yes, Mr Mayor. Look, I obviously speak in favour of the notice of motion and believe it's a new avenue to engage with the city's youth. Look, since I became a councillor, the city's made many attempts at engaging our youth, often with limited success. I mean, we've tried at a time to start a youth committee. Didn't go that well. When we had a community advisory committee, we filled many spots, but the youth was a struggle. But we have had opportunities. We did gain traction on certain design projects like Sir Albert Jennings Park. That was a good success, and there's been many more. In raising this initiative, it's actually been great to hear from Director McQuaid and her team. The city's identifying many opportunities to, through our youth centres, annual youth fest and so forth, what's commented in the officer comment, in opportunities to continue engaging our youth. But I just raise a few points that were questions at last week's agenda briefing that I couldn't make, but I listened to the tape. Basically, our original notice of motion was slightly different to what's being presented tonight. It's centred on engaging secondary schools in Canning with a focus on humanities and social science students and also political and law students. However, as Director McQuaid's team pointed out to us, the diversity across Canning, the differences in the schools, it was recommended to broaden our motion to allow further opportunities. And so the intent of our motion is to encapsulate our aim to engage more with school students, but also ensure staff are continuing focusing on other students, on young people through the various programs and initiatives. Look, a few months ago, students from Rossmoyne Senior High School came to Council and presented an item. They presented passionately and really enjoyed the opportunity to engage directly with Council, but that was really just a one-off that came by chance. We should be engaging teachers in putting out a hand and basically inviting them to see ways that we can engage each other, whether it be, as the officer mentioned, development of policies, strategies, master plans, but also engaging Council directly if there's opportunities. The intent's not to interfere with the curriculum or the state government, but give students an opportunity to learn more about local government and participate in matters that affect their community. I personally attended Rossmoyne Senior High School many years ago and studied political and legal studies, as it was then known, and then part of my tertiary qualifications include politics and international relations. But despite this, I never really had any involvement in local government. I never really understood it. Many years later, I didn't really know what councillors did. At Rossmoyne, all those years ago, we studied the theory of local government. You study the Westminster system, you study all these things, but you don't get the practical side. There's so much focus on federal parliament. I mean, they often meet with their state and federal members of parliament, but there's no links to local government. And we're the ones building the playgrounds. We're the ones doing so much that affects them. And so this is an opportunity in my eyes to deliver those mutually beneficial outcomes by exposing students to the City of Canning, give them real life opportunities to put that theory into practice. I'm a real believer in there's a complete difference between theory and reality, and to actually see certain things in practice will make a big difference to their learning and understanding, but also they'll be contributing to their community. And one of the reasons I originally looked towards the HASS and P&L students was these students are already politically engaged. They're motivated in that regard, not like party politics, but they have an interest in government, they have an interest in law. I mean, they would like to come in here and see these sorts of things and participate in our processes. And but for whatever reason, whether the school doesn't look at it or whether we don't go and talk to them directly, it just doesn't really happen. So this motion is deliberately broad. It's not replicating something that other tiers of government already do or interfering with the curriculum or anything like that. It's just basically value adding to what the city is already doing in a certain scope and looking at other ways we can do it. And I just really hope that you all support it, because it would be great to hear more from our youth. Thanks.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Barry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Only from the perspective of, as I read the, not the notice of motion, but the, well, there's points in it where it says the city has had not the best success in engaging youth in its community consultation as part of the, and even the youth advisory. Basically, the HASS services, politics and law study courses. I mean, I don't like the thought of the city getting involved in what some might say is social engineering. We've tried and for whatever we've done, we've failed because the youth are not interested. I mean, I would rather see, youth services. I mean, I don't even know whether Bentley still has a youth service. I think we have a pop-up one in Cannington, one in Linwood, and one in Willetton. I'm sure those two are working. I don't know about the rest. Whether this is something akin to teaching kids politics in school and them striking for whatever the reason, whether it's climate or vegan, I just don't think the city should be involved. I don't, like I said, we've tried it on a number of occasions and unfortunately it's failed because as for politics, I mean, I think most adults these days don't like politics. And I think children would like it even less, which is borne out by the fact that we haven't been successful. So just based on that, I think, you know, we should stay out of it. I mean, if this is state government stuff, I think the State Curriculum Council, they should be the ones involved with this. We used to do this years ago, you know, you'd get invited. I think when I was on council before, I think I got invited out to Arana to, you know, give a little speech on what local government was. When you look at what we do, as opposed to state and federal, we're really poor cousins. So no, thank you.
I'll just I'll just say that I support it. I think we're jumping ahead of ourselves there, talking about strike action and vegans and climate change and goodness knows what. Look, it's pretty clear. This is simply asking, item one just asked to investigate opportunities to strengthen relationships. I remember it was it last year we had an item came to council. It might have even been one of the Aldridges, their daughter came to council and was, you know, asking us questions as a council, saying, well, what are you doing to connect with youth in the area? I mean, what are we doing? And I know we have tried and perhaps have failed at times, but I guess we can't stop trying. Ben Kunza here became a councillor at 27 years of age. And I would like to think that long after I've gone, that we're starting to plant seeds as a council to bring through a new generation of younger councillors that probably have a more contemporary point of view on, you know, how they want their community to actually look as they transpire through it, as they move through it. So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're simply asking the Chief Executive to investigate opportunities, and then we're looking at developing at some stage and implementing a model around youth engagement. How can we better do it? I'd love to see Willetton High School kids engaged. I'm not sure how that would look, but I have to agree with what Councillor Kunza said. Gee whiz, there seems to be a real lack of awareness in the community, actually, not just with young people, but in the community about what local government is, how it works, what it looks like, and what our function is. So I think if we can actually do it, and I do note that the motion is supported by the officers, by the administration for all those reasons. We've tried so hard. I don't think now is the time to stop and just throw our hands up and say, well, we tried. I think we have to keep trying. I think we owe it to the younger generation. You know, maybe if a bunch of fuddy-duddies like us are not able to connect with them, we need to find a way to do it. I'm not saying you're all fuddy-duddies. I certainly am. You're so young you've never even heard of fuddy-duddies. But I'm just saying that I think, you know, this is not the time for us to kind of stagger at that hurdle. We're simply being asked to investigate opportunities to strengthen relations. I think it's a good idea. And I think we should all support it. We've got so many high schools and primary schools, but so many high schools in City of Canning. I think we could do a little bit more. And I don't think this is asking too much. Deputy Mayor.
Is my understanding that the CEO is going to investigate opportunities and report back to council at an opportune time? Is that my understanding correct?
Is that the understanding? I might direct that to Director McQuaid. Are you probably better placed to actually answer that question, Director McQuaid?
Yes, we'd certainly keep council informed of how we go in terms of looking at those opportunities, and particularly in relation to implementing a model for youth engagement. That is something we would definitely bring to council.
When do you envisage that being able to be done?
I'll have to take that question on notice. We haven't sat down with the team to decide how long this will take us to pull together, and the first stage is to look at the opportunities to engage and go out and speak to the schools and the students and ask them and ask them how they would like to be involved in this process, and from there we would develop a timeline for implementation.
So if I said, if I was going to make a little amendment, could I say report back to council October OCM? Would that give you enough time?
We will certainly be able to bring a report back to council at that time.
Councillor Ponaturo.
Can I?
Oh, sorry.
Can I just propose a slight amendment then?
Yes,
that
you
we look. Should I speak to it now, Mr. Mayor, or just?
Well, you can actually. You need to actually tell governance what your amendment will be.
Just very simple.
You're going to. It'll be a new 3, maybe a 3.
Yeah. Okay. Report back to council at September OCM, because I know that October's an election. Is September OCM agreeable?
Karen, can I get you to? It'll be a new 3, something along the lines of. Sorry, Georgia, I can't see that. It's too damn small. That's all right. It'll be something along the lines of brings a report to council. Yes, I'll ask Director McQuaid just to comment. Director McQuaid.
Just to confirm that, if that effectively provides us with 2 months, so the report we'd be bringing back won't be a model for youth engagement. It will be an update on progress to date at that stage, because to have the report ready for council, we'd have to have it ready in August for September.
So I'm happy to listen to you on this. Does November or October sound a bit better?
Most definitely, November, we will have something more concrete to be able to bring to
Okay, can I please put a November up, given that they don't want to rush? It's not a rush, I just want the report back at some time. Thank you.
Did you definitely want a report coming back to council at that stage? Because it'll just be a situation report, or did you
I think
want
it's important to keep council informed, and things that have happened previously about this.
We could bring it to a SIB though. That might be as an item on a SIB.
I've just, this is how we usually do it here, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. So I just thought, if councillors want to vote on it, that's fine. If they don't like it, but that's just what I'm thinking. And do you want me to speak to the other things?
Just wait till we get this on the board, because we'll need to get it up, make sure you're happy with it, and then we'll have to get a seconder, and then we'll have to.
It may be a minor amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no.
Can we ask the people that have put it up to see if they would support it?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I don't mind that. Councillor Spencer, do you have any issue with a report coming back to council in November?
Could I just suggest that it's a progress report?
I think that's what it will be.
Yeah, can we
On the
just put
record.
progress report, just so it's clearly defined as what we're going to be expecting?
Which is in keeping with what Director McQuaid just said. So progress report to council.
Happy with that?
Okay with that? Councillor
I'm
Kunz, are you
happy
okay with that? If you're okay, yeah. Councillor Sabiri?
What's the progress report?
Just on the progress of the, so if we were going to actually adopt the resolution tonight, it'll be basically what actions have been taken place and what progress has been made between tonight and when the report comes to council. So it won't be, the whole process won't be finalised, but it's just basically telling council this is where we're at the moment, this is what we've done, and this is what we're planning. So just on the progress of the project, progress report.
Okay.
It's
I
like
was
funny,
just
don't
wondering, because in the officer comment says they want to create a framework, would we not want to see the framework? Or
No, it's just progress against the framework. Director McQuaid?
Yes, we won't have a framework created by November, so it would be the steps that we've taken and the progress to. A framework that also involves full consultation with young people in our community will take longer than sort of 4 or 5 months, as we know, community consultation and these processes. If we've got it by November, that's what we'll table. If we don't have it by November, it will be what we've done to date.
Thank you, I understand now.
No worries at all. So that has been accepted by I will take that as a minor amendment, and it's been accepted by Councillor Spencer Teo and Councillor Kunza. So thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's now been included.
Speak to my my other comments I have on my little notebook.
Yeah, you can speak to the, let me see. So we've got the amendment at the moment. Yes, you can speak to the substantive motion, which includes your new amendment. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
The substantive motion.
I've looked at it, investigate opportunities. I've listened to Councillor Barry with some bit of colourful language, social engineering, climate or vegan. Most adults don't like politics, and young people even less. So I think that's actually a major motivation for me wanting to support this, is the apathy in society towards local government. You know, we have a very poor voter turnout. So I think it would be good just to explore it. We're investigating opportunities at the moment. I don't know what we're going to do, but I think it'd be remiss of me to say, oh, there's nothing to see here.
maybe we'll have a look at it. We'll have a look at it in November, and we'll say, look, this is good, or we need to adjust. I commend Councillor Kunza and Councillor Spencer Tia for thinking about this. And a new generation is very different from us, and apathy in local government does really sort of get on me. We all take part in a robust democratic process. We all spend a lot of time here, and apathy sort of just doesn't really work with me, especially having lived in a nation state that has a different process, and it's not called democracy, and it's basically a lot different. And I didn't really like that model, and I really like our model, and I think we don't really appreciate how good a model we have. And I think it's a strategic strength of not only Canning, not only the state, but the nation of Australia. So I think this is good. Don't know what we're going to find, but happy to engage with the youth, because I think we need to change our model, because what we were doing before, I think we did it a few years ago, there was just nothing back. It was just nothing. So going through the school medium, I think that's a smart way to try and redirect our focus. So I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion before I put it back to Councillor Ponaturi? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we are entering into the state government work in a bit of a rush here, because I can't believe that, yes, I understand youth are very important, and every day when I make every decision here, I always think about the youth. Are we making the decisions to come for youth to come 5 and 10 and 20 years time in the council, every decision we make? And so obviously for them to be not being connected, so our communication wasn't something getting right. So probably we might have to look at what does the youth like it? They're all on the latest social media, Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. They want to see more lively and more active. Only just last month we wanted to even attract more youth and engage with the council, and we didn't even support that for them to watch us what we do live streaming. And now we're talking about the youth that we want them to be engaged here. So I really cannot see, not because the particular motion didn't get up, but it's just I don't know where the thinking thoughts coming.
Mayor, can I?
But I also would like to
order
know
on relevance. I just don't understand why we're talking about another decision that council made.
Deputy Mayor's quite rightly, Councillor Ponaturi. You've got to be really careful.
I know, but what I'm saying, how do we engage?
Please don't speak over me, Councillor Ponaturi. I'm ruling at the moment, so just so you know, under Section 8.12, when the presiding member speaks during debate, any member then speaking must immediately sit down, and any member present must preserve strict silence so that the presiding member can be heard without interruption. So please, try not to speak over me. The Deputy Mayor has correctly raised the matter. You've raised something that's completely irrelevant. You've raised, again, the live streaming motion. In fact, what you said was not correct. You said that Council had not supported live streaming. In fact, we did. We're live streaming audio. We are live streaming. So what you said is factually incorrect, but it has no relevance. I'm ruling that it's not relevant. So I'd ask you to just make sure that your comments are relevant to the motion in front of us, which is to talk about youth engagement.
Yeah, that's exactly the youth engagement I'm talking. So the youth engagement, what do they like? See, I don't even use Snapchat, because they use Snapchat because they want to see things. So what do the youth want, and how do we communicate with them? So that is our first question to ask ourselves. And how do we want? See, if we cannot get the communication right, how are we going to engage them in the community, first of all? And then we need to create an interest of local government. And did we ever think about having an open day and invite the youth to come around, or give them an opportunity to come and perform some band and do some arts and other activities? So then are they interested in coming and seeing what's happening in the council? I have been working not just in the last 3.5 years with the youth. I think the first time I brought the TS Canning from the Scouts, young girls and boys here, probably 3 years ago. They wanted to come and watch a meeting, and I brought them. And I worked with the Rotary Interactive kids from Wilton Senior High School. I work in the music sector as well, with the youth as well. But it depends on what message we want to give them, what we do, and what is important in local government. And I must say that something right now. We have a great and fantastic state government who are absolutely doing a fantastic job, and we got a we have the youth in the capable hands in the moment, and the Department of Communities as well. And they do number of youth engagement in the communities and societies. And I know some people have done politics and international relations, and only people who are doing those subjects sometimes, or law or social science and other areas, might be interested in it. I have spoken to quite a number of CALD young women who want to understand what do we do in local government, what happens in state government. I've connected them a number of people. So I cannot understand why are we stepping into the state government matters here. We have a number of things to achieve in the next 1 to 3 years. With the current budget, we'll be adapting soon. And the 10-year plan, we have looked at it. And we even spoke about cutting number of staff and how we are going to increase the efficiencies of staff. So these are something we are unnecessarily entering into the another government level of program. And one more thing I wanted to mention, the teacher wrote an email from Ross Point regarding the youth program. Similarly, we had in some, and also he mentioned saying that I'm not writing on behalf of the school. I'm not sure how she entered into this notice of motion. But similarly, we had another engineer writing from Subiaco from a work email, and then we took discipline action. So it's just and also, before I forget all of that, I must say I've been involved in this.
Councillor Ponaturo, I've got to raise a point of order again. That is completely irrelevant. Why you would drag that up, I have got no idea. Why you would discuss in a public forum about a disciplinary action taken against an officer from the city of Subiaco. I do not understand it.
I'm not sure.
Please move on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But just one more second, because you took half 30 seconds of my time.
Your time is up, but please, you've got 5 seconds to finish up.
Okay, can I take 1 minute of extension, please?
You would have to get the whole council to vote in favour of that. You need a seconder. Okay, we'll put it to the vote.
Thank you.
Seconder was Deputy Mayor Jacobs. Mover. Councillor Ponaturo is a mover. Let's put it to the vote.
The motion to extend Councillor Ponathuro's time for debate has been carried 10 in favour.
Thank you. Let's move on, Councillor Ponaturo. Let's wind it up. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to share that with councillors, especially Councillor Gonzalez, Amanda Spencer, there are startup programs are available in City of Canning, and I've got involved in those programs here. It's happening in this high school within City of Canning, the number of programs. I've sat on those as a judge on those panels too. So there are a number of programs are there, but it's a matter of how we pull all of them together and maybe share that information. Maybe perhaps that would have been a better request to the Director of Community Development, asking what are the youth programs there, and maybe ask other councillors, do you have any ideas, what is existing, and we can go and use that as a good example. So it is, most of these things are happening, and I mean, even language schools is happening. So I'm not sure why we are entering into the state government youth development program. And I cannot see, especially in this, given the current timing of us entering into the 10-year budget planning, and we really have to be more efficient in using staff timing to do our other core roles. Thank you.
Councillor Sabiri.
A question, how much will this cost? This is something we've learnt to ask. Thank you.
Will there be a cost involved, and is that a question you could answer, Dr. McQuaid?
Certainly, if we undertake it ourselves, it will be a cost associated with staff time and any sort of promotional material we do to engage young people in the conversation, because very much this is about how do we engage young people across the matters of council. If, as we've suggested, we work with YACWA, which is the leading advocacy body, we estimate approximate $5,000, which we have as part of our youth engagement general operating budget, because how we engage with young people is actually a key focus for the youth services area.
So about $5,000, and we've got the money. Yes, Councillor Sabiri.
Speak?
Oh, of course, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm happy that we've already allocated budget from our youth engagement. And I support the officer recommendation in the body of the report. I think it's really important. We have 2 schools in the city with a lot of students from non-English speaking backgrounds. I think it's really important to engage them. I think they probably would be already more interested in the civics than the Australian students, because I'm a bit, to be honest, shocked that when someone who's hasn't gone to school here and started work, when I explained to my colleagues, sometimes my colleagues who work in local government, about the system, and they're not entirely aware, I'm quite shocked. So I think it's a good thing to engage in general, but also I see marginalized youth in there, and that jumps out at me, and I think it's really important to engage them, get them more involved in this area as well, so that they're not marginalized. Yeah, thank you. I'll support this motion.
Thank you. I might ask Councillor Spencer Teo to close debate then on the matter, and we'll then put the matter to the vote. Thank you, Councillor Spencer Teo.
Thank you, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Jacobs, for rebutting most of what Councillor Barry said for me. That saves me a bit of time. One thing that Councillor Barry did say in being the poor cousins, but we need to change the view of local government. Minister Carey even said so himself. We need to attract the youth. We need to attract multiculturalism into local government. This is a way of doing that. Councillor Ponaturo said that there is no interest. Well, there is interest, and I can tell you that there is. I've had students come up to me asking me about certain things in the community and saying, why haven't they been asked? And I can't give them an answer. I've got kids coming up to me saying they want to be heard. How can they be heard? And I say to them, come and give a deputation, and they go off, they do their own research like the girls from Rossmoyne Senior High School did, and they came and gave a deputation without me holding their hand or anything. So to say that just because someone hasn't directly engaged with you doesn't mean that there's no interest there. With respect to the state government's written the curriculum. The state government has given teachers the directive to give the students assignments, to make them get involved in all level of governments. That's why we as elected members are invited from these schools to come and give them an insight to local government. So to say that we're interfering is completely wrong, because the state government has completely opened the doors, and it's up to the teachers to find avenues, and this is making their jobs a little bit easier. So to me, this is a collaboration of local government and state government, not an interference whatsoever. I love the idea of an open day, but how are we going to promote that if we don't have the engagement process in place? So, you know, that's great, but you can't put the cart before the horse. So at the end of the day, the students want this, the teachers need this. This is an opportunity for us to get involved. It's not going to cost any money. There's no excuses. It's a really important area, and like I've said before, we need to listen to the youth. That's why they don't want to engage, because they don't feel they're being listened to. So let's open the doors, welcome them in, and listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, let's put the matter to the vote.
Nom-00321 has been carried 8 in favour, 2 against, with Councillors Ponaturo and Barry voting against the motion.
Thank you, councillors. And the final motion of the night is notice of motion 005 of 21. That is, let me see, exploration of sister city relationships in regional and rural WA. Can we come up with a more gender neutral title? Very disappointed in that one. Councillor Jacobs is the mover of that motion. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kunza. Councillor Jacobs, go right ahead.
Been promoted tonight, I've been demoted tonight. That's all.
Sorry about that. Deputy Mayor Jacobs.
It's okay, Mr Mayor. I was promoted to Mayor earlier.
You were the Mayor a moment ago. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, councillors, it's on the screen here. Just a quick bit of context, and I'll keep my comments as brief as possible. On the 20th of May 2021, I had the pleasure, along with Councillor Barry, Councillor Ponatua, Councillor Holland, the Mayor and the CEO, to attend a Welga breakfast. The new Minister, Honourable John Kerry, had a pretty good speech, I thought, and one of the things that he alluded to was his desire that bigger, more resource-able metropolitan councils may be able to help their country cousins. Mr Mayor, if you don't like the sister term, we can go with cousins.
I like country cousins.
That's one that the CEO used. I thought that was pretty good. But anyway, look, aside of that, jokes aside, I think this has a certain benefit. If you look, councillors, it's just simply that we look into it. We write to Welga. We also write to the Department of Local Government, and we're just seeing if what's possible. I think that the architecture would be that Welga would set something up. We take that to the upcoming Welga Zone East Zone meeting. I think our delegates, Councillor Porter and Councillor Kunz, would may be happy to take that along. And I'm also conscious the fact that this is not a burden on us, but simply examining an opportunity. I think a need that exists, and if we set up an architecture, we may be able to help certain people, but then other councils may be able to help others. So I think it would be a win-win for the councils involved, whether that's metropolitan or rural or regional, and also for the minister. That's pretty much my comments there, Mr Mayor. I just hope that we can explore this. I believe it won't be a cost on us, but simply exploring something that I think makes a lot of sense. We're not talking about international partners. We're talking about people right here in WA, local governments that can help each other out if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kunze.
Just to start off with, as I don't attend Welga Zone meetings. I haven't provided a delegate report since 2019, so as I haven't attended any. But I just got a couple of questions. First of all, so as I haven't had the opportunity, I don't know if I should ask the Deputy Mayor or staff, but with respect to, would there be any potential or any opportunities to actually start looking at those, any local governments, regional local governments now, or what is actually required from establishing a framework for the city to actually look at anything like this, or is that putting the cart before the horse? Just I know in the officer comment that we've had those relationships.
Been the theme of the night, the cart before the horse, hasn't it?
Hence why it's in my head.
I think the report's pretty clear in respect to we've already had arrangements with a number of councils between, I think, 2005 and 2015. There's a significant amount of contact, but can I get the relevant director, thank you for pointing to my right, Mr Bright, just to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, certainly there has been relationships in the past which have been detailed in the report. There's nothing that is stopping council to investigate these in a potentially an ad hoc manner, and obviously the Welga model is preferred by staff because obviously you've got a centralised body that can collect that information. I think the issue for us would be that if the City of Canning and other metropolitan local governments were trying to find a partner, we're trying to find a rural local government, there could be multiple requests for survey information. So we believe that I guess a centralised register would be a better opportunity for local governments, but there's nothing stopping the city exploring alternative arrangements as well. It's just that it would take a fair bit of work to survey individual local governments to try to find out what they've got a gap in and what we can potentially provide given our current resourcing restraints.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, based on that, no. No, I support the office. I support the Deputy Mayor's notice of motion. I wonder whether WAG will be shocked by receiving our advocacy given the recent conversations, but I think it's great to actually formalise our support for it. It raises a number of ways that regional local governments, that we can provide that support and advice and whatever we can do, and I think it's a great notice of motion to put up.
Yeah,
And so I support the intent, I support what's happening, and I look forward to hearing back from if this is supported, our WALGA delegates to hear how it goes at the South East Zone meeting.
Yeah, and I also, for the record, I also support the motion, and it's strongly supported also by the administration. Well done, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Ponaturai.
I have a couple of questions to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor Kunsa just mentioned with Walga, the recent conversation, they'll be quite shocked to see what is any conversation on this topic, or you just mentioned that?
I just meant because the minister's, my interpretation is the minister raised it, so is that not correct?
Yeah, that's right, the minister raised it. Anything else?
Just one more question. Director Bright just mentioned that given that current restraints with the staff resourcing timing, so how many hours, or have you thought about anything, or you just
I don't think we'll know until we actually explore it a little bit deeper.
But
Director Bright?
Just last minute.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, you can see that we, at an administration level, we're looking into this. We're supportive of this concept of helping the country cousins, and obviously the CEO was one of the advocates of us exploring this. But certainly, as you'll see there, we were in the project planning phase. We had started a fair bit of work in this area, and then COVID hit, and our resourcing had to really go to other priorities. It was certainly something that we were looking at picking up at some point in the future, but we do believe that a centralised model is a more sustainable and enduring model for local government.
Councillor Ponaturai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask the interim CEO the question, do you think this is the right timing for us to be doing this, or perhaps this can wait till after the next financial year? So I just wonder. And thank you.
Do you have an opinion?
I'm sure we can progress it.
Brief.
That's my opinion.
We can progress it. Councillor Barry.
Hopefully this will be the one to finish off tonight.
Let's hope.
Yes, I support the Deputy Mayor's notice of motion. Like you said, a number of us were at that meeting, and I think, if I recall correctly, a couple of people from different councils stood up and said they were already doing it. The fact of the matter is that we had done it, and as it says there, what Director Bright has put in, Wickerpin, Gamelling, Nanjaraku, for those who don't know, the glass downstairs was a gift from the Shire of Nanjaraku for the work that we did, and we saw fit to make it a big part of our foyer. Back in those days, I think we used to have to send the people up there physically. The fact of the matter is that we now could probably do a lot of this stuff from here, remote, and I don't think it wasn't free then, but it was at cost. So I can't see a problem with any of it. Thank you.
Thank you. In the absence of anyone speaking against the motion, Councillor Porter.
Mine's not really a question or talking against it. It's more just the term country cousins is sort of like calling them yokels, so we might not want to do
Calling them what?
Yokels or hillbillies or hicks.
No, I don't think that's official.
It's not official.
The motion
That was
is
just-
the motion. So
that
we
was
have
The
an-
dictionary as such.
That was
Yeah,
just
that's all right.
talk, sorry, that was just banter.
Yeah,
Because
that was just a bit of banter. So
Yeah,
the title of the motion is still Exploration of Sister Council Relationships. It's generally referred to as a sister city relationship, so sister council. Councillors, unless anyone wants to speak against it, and in the absence of that, there's no need for rebuttal, we will move on and put the matter to the vote. Thank you.
Motion non-005-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Urgent business at 15, there is none. Confidential matters at 16, there are none. Item 17, there being no further business, I now declare the meeting closed. Time being 9, what is it, CEO? 9:41 p.m. Thank you very much for your attendance. Sean, thanks very much for your patience. We're done. Thank you and good night.